We are here today to talk about Neena Pacholke. She is 27 years old. She is a TV anchor in Wisconsin. If anybody's familiar with my channel, you guys are familiar with the Chesley Chris story and how we covered that and how we talk a lot about mental health. And one of the key areas that we talk about is self-conclusions. It's a tragedy, it's a heartbreak that truly a lot of people in society um, struggle with understanding why and what leads people down this dark road um, of feeling as though there is no hope left for them. And it's a very sensitive topic, but it is a very vital topic that we all need to discuss because a lot of people feel alone. They feel alone. They feel ashamed of how they feel. They feel as though if they show any side of what they think to be weakness or vulnerability, they will be rejected. Um, but this story is really sad and captivating. It's heartbreaking because this young lady falls into a lot of the similarities that we've seen in these self-conclusions. If you guys have been following my channel anyway, then you will know that there are some indicators that kind of seem to fall along the lines. A lot of the individuals that we've seen this year who have self-concluded had high accolades or high achievements or challenged themselves to achieve high achievements in life or high accolades in life. Another thing that we've seen is a lot of in self conclusions. A lot of individuals wear a mask. You go around with smiles on their face as if everything's okay, and a lot of times you'll see them be even more elaborate in expressing happiness when in reality they are suffering inside alone and they feel alone. I mean, you may think to yourself, wow, this person has everything that they could ever ask for. They have, a great job. They have a fiance like she had. We'll talk about her story. Or, they have a family. They have all these things. But in reality, I must come back to the reality and the truth of really the source of happiness. I know a lot of people will not agree with me, so I understand. But I can only speak from my own experiences, just like you will speak from your own experiences. And what I can say is no matter what accolade we have or we achieve in life, no matter what friend, family, whoever we have, none of those external things can truly bring you full happiness and completion in life. They can't. And if you depend upon those things, you will find one day that those things will not make you happy long term. What I've found in my life is that God is the true source of happiness. That's what I have found. I have gone through many hardships. I've faced many, we all face many different trying times in our life. But through those dark phases, I realized no external thing, it didn't matter what it was. No matter what success I had, or family, or friend, or who, whatever, it didn't matter what external thing I had. At the end of the day, the only person, the only source that really was able to help me get out of those dark times is God and truly leaning on God. Because self conclusions are related deeply to a spiritual battle that is in the mind. And it is the enemy that comes into the mind of individuals. And he torments us with the different things that we experience in life, um, losses, pressure from other people, rejection, different obstacles we face. He takes those things because he watches your life and then he torments you day and night upon day and day upon hour with these different thoughts in your mind. And if you have no way and you don't know how, if you don't have the tools and you don't know how to battle those minds, the thought processes that the enemy puts into your mind to torture your spirit, you can be dragged into a hole of despair and hopelessness and loneliness. And this can happen to all of us, I must say. It doesn't matter if you're a believer or not. I mean, Chesley Chris was a believer. She went to church, she prayed, but the enemy still was able to get her, because that's the thing. It's not the matter of just knowing who God is. It is having that connection with him, spending the time with him, knowing his word, and being able to utilize his word to fight the enemy and the thoughts that he puts into the mind. And also having the willpower and the drive to do it. You see, because when we talk about Neena, people would say, even her sister said that she had all the tools she needed to help battle the struggles that she was going through. She had access to whatever therapist she could have wanted. She had all the friends she could have asked to talk to. She had family members that loved her. She had a fiance that she was going to marry in just 2 months. But Neena ended up in a spiral, in a hole, and she felt completely hopeless, and she didn't want to get out of the hole, meaning she gave up the fight. She didn't want to fight anymore, and so she didn't reach out to anyone, and she continued to fester upon these thoughts that the enemy had put in her mind. He was torturing her day and night, torturing her with all the, and we'll talk about what the things he was torturing her with, but we're going to talk about a dark side of being a news anchor, because a lot of people don't really know the battles that news anchors go through. This young lady had a lot of other things that she had gone through before she became a news anchor, but all her career just added more to the agony and the depression and the emotional torture this young lady went through when she added upon already her existing battles that she was dealing with, this career that she had to cover all these different tormenting stories that wreaked havoc on her mind. And she had to take these tormenting stories home, didn't know how to process them, didn't get any help, didn't get any counseling, didn't reach out to anyone. She was the type of person that felt she could carry everything on her own. She was a very strong-minded young lady, strong-willed young lady. And she disclosed a little bit of hints on some of her social media about how she handled certain things, but in an indirect way. She did, and we'll go over that. But this young lady thought that she could carry all of these stress, the depression, the loss that she had all on her own. And it became too much it became too much for her at a point. And she didn't feel she can go out to anyone. She wanted to do it on her own. She didn't want to bother her fiance with it. She didn't want to burden her friends with it. She didn't want to burden anyone, because she wanted to appear to be this pillar of strength. But what all that does is it adds more and more weight to the point where you can no longer sustain. You can no longer keep up with the pain and the agony. And so what you do is, or what she did is, she went around carrying this pillar of strength around and showed this aura of happiness as a way to cover up the ongoing mental torment this young lady had gone through. And we are going to go over that. So let's start talking about Neena Pacholke. And again, this is just my theory based on the stuff I've seen. So she is a TV anchor. She graduated from USF. She was 27 years old, and she was a very accomplished basketball player. And we talked about individuals that are athletes, especially in college. They go through a lot of pressure to try to balance out their education with also sustaining their qualifications to be on the team. And she was very skillful at being a basketball player and accomplished a lot in her basketball career in college. And she actually used basketball as a way to distract her from a loss that she had gone through that she never got over. So, though she worked in Wisconsin as a television news anchor, friends and fans of Neena Pokey in Florida mourn her death. So, she is originally from Florida. Her friends, family, most of the people that really have close ties to her are in her hometown, Florida. So, we are already seeing some factors at play in this story. Number one, she she was a prior basketball player, so she had that challenge of all of the stressors related to being an athlete. Two, she moved away from her hometown that had all of her support system there. She moved from Florida to Wisconsin. Huge drastic change. It's kind of analogous to Chesley Chris, who moved from North Carolina to New York, moving away to a new place, kind of now losing out some of the close people there that normally could have that connection with you is now gone, and you're far away from that. And she also, number three, the indicator is she was a news anchor. The news anchor was a University of Florida women's basketball point guard, and she grew up in Tampa, Florida. She's 27 years old, as I said, so she's in the younger age group. And of course, she died from self-conclusion. She was found by the police in her home during a welfare check, according to the News Post. Another thing to mention, too, is that she was actually engaged, and she was scheduled to get married just next month, actually, in October. Okay, before her move to Wisconsin, Pacholke attended university at Hillsborough County at USF, where she received her bachelor's degree in mass communications, according to Weebly site. Pacholke was born in, oh, actually, she's not even from Florida. Let's back this up. She was born in Chattanooga, can't even say that word, guys. Chattanooga, Tennessee, but she grew up in Tampa, Florida. See, I thought she was from Florida because that's originally where she grew up, but she was born in Tennessee, moved to Tampa, Florida in her younger years, and grew up, basically was raised in Florida. And actually, we're going to go with this bio. Let's take a look at this bio in a second. If I don't get to it, guys, go back and remind me. She attended University of Florida, where she played women's basketball as a three-point specialist, according to Tampa Time article, and helped lead Tampa's Freedom High to the program's only state tournament berth in 2013. So she was a leader on her basketball team. This is sounding a lot like another one of these self-conclusions we talked about, a young lady who went to Stanford who was on her team. I think she was played soccer. If you guys can recall the other young lady we talked about. But similar to her, this young lady here was a lead and helped lead her team to their victory on the basketball team. So again, there's that pressure when you are in a leadership role. That is a person who has a form of strength. She is an athlete. Chesley Chris was an athlete. Oh goodness, I don't know the other girl's name who self-concluded this year. She was an athlete. If you guys remember her name, put it in the chat. I cannot believe. I think her name was Katie or something like that. But she also was an athlete. But there's a similar common theme with our athletes, because athletes, a lot of times, they are leaders. They put a lot of pressure on themselves, and they always carry this outer shell of strength. They do not show any form of weakness. And a lot of athletes do this, especially even when they are experiencing an injury. When they're injured and they want to still have that pressure to carry their team to the finish line, they will put on this outer exterior of strength when in reality they can be in severe pain. And so they have been trained at very young ages to exude this form of outer strength when in reality they could be suffering and tormented inside. And so they take that same type of strength and they carry that in their emotions. So, and a lot of athletes, they experience a lot of depression and self-conclusion thoughts. That is something that I've seen in the pattern in our athletes. So keep that in mind as we talk about this tragedy. The University of South Florida's women's basketball Twitter account posted a heartfelt message stating, "The Bulls are heartbroken to learn of the sudden loss of our beloved former teammate, Neena Pacholke." And she played on that team between 2013 to 2016. Our thoughts and prayers are with Neena and her family during this extremely difficult time. And this was the post that they did here. And they posted her photo and with her uniform on when she played on the team. And there were a lot of replies. During her semester at college, Pacholke was an anchor and reporter for Florida Focus. So she also was a reporter in Florida. A news brief produced by USF students. Pacholke graduated from the university in 2017. And according to the New York Post, Tampa Bay Times, Pacholke was also engaged. Brendan Mackey, Pacholke's co-anchor, shared a tribute. Also, every day she made people smile. Sounds just like Chesley Chris. The same thing her coworker said. Whether that was through a TV screen or just being an incredible friend, she was so happy, so full of life, and a role model. Reality, she was not happy. She was empty inside. She was battling a lot of emotional pain, things that she had not gotten over, and also the emotional battles that she had to deal with every day on the job, where she felt imprisoned and she could not get out of. And she didn't really know how to cope with it except for to carry this external shell of happiness, when in reality she was really alone. She felt alone. Even though she had all these people around her, she didn't feel safe. She had to show this exterior in her mind of strength, when in reality she was tormented inside. Brendan Mackey says, "This is my message to Neena. I love you and I'll miss you forever." And this is the second news anchor we have lost this year. Chesley Chris was I would call her a news anchor. I would kind of call her like an entertainment anchor, you would say, for Extra. Whether we are skiing or coming up with fun bits for the show or out on a Saturday night, she always made everything more fun. So this is some photos he posted of her. I think this is on his Twitter. Yep, it's a Twitter that he tweeted. That is Brendan with Neena, and she is such a stunning young lady. So people think, oh, well, people have looks. They have everything they could ever ask for. That is not the source of happiness. It doesn't matter what you have. You can be the most beautiful person in the world. You can have the perfect body. You can have, all the achievements anyone can dream of. You could be the president of the United States and still be depressed and unhappy, because none of those external things will ever bring you happiness. Truly, the only source of happiness, which I can speak from my experience, and you're welcome to not agree with me, but I can speak from my experience, is God. A relationship with God is truly the way. And learning how to navigate through that relationship, because you can even have a relationship with God and the enemy will still torment you, like he tormented Job. You have to have a spirit of willpower to fight through those times and navigate the Word of God and utilize that as your source to fight those trying times when you're experiencing the battles in the mind. And it truly is in the mind. Neena Pacholke's TV career. The news of Pacholke's death devastated her colleagues as well as many viewers who remembered her vibrant on-air and off-air personality. A pinned post on the Facebook page of News 9 Wow encouraged commenters to share their favorite memories or condolences. One commenter with the username Adriana Torres remembered Pacholke as the sweetest girl with the brightest smile. And the news anchor, they put a message here and they said, "We are absolutely devastated to share with all of that Neena passed away suddenly. Please keep her family and friends in your thoughts. Feel free to share any favorite memories or condolences in the comments below." Neena Pacholke joined WOW in 2017, where she began as a multimedia journalist and worked her way up to co-anchor as well as producing and anchoring a morning newscast. And she actually did an interview that we're going to go over to talk about some of the challenges that news anchors go through, because people think, oh, if you're a news anchor, it looks so nice and flowery. All the news anchors are smiling and happy and bubbly and vibrant. But there is a dark, sinister, emotional turmoil that people go through who are news anchors. You see, news anchors have to cover stories regardless. They can't just shut off the TV like us. You know, when we cover all the different stories on this page, you know, a lot of them are sad and you know, we go through a lot of the emotions when we talk about them, and they're heartbreaking a lot of times, and they can really, if you're an empath, they can really wreak havoc on your emotions. You can go through a state of depression just by turning on the news, because there's so much sad stories on there. People being murdered by their boyfriends, people dying in crashes, all kinds of tragedies that happen that we see on the news. I mean, we talk about them on this page, and you guys see some of the emotions I go through, and a lot of you guys experience when you're hearing the stories. Imagine being a news anchor, and that's your job. You have to come to work. You don't have a choice. You cannot turn off the TV. You have to talk about and cover stories about people being brutally murdered, or people, you know, dying from these horrific, you know, crashes, or just all these just tormenting things in photos that you have to see, graphic photos of people's having injuries and all kinds of things. And you have to cover that every day. You don't get a choice in the matter. You have to see the photos. You have to interview people who have lost family members who are in agony. You have to go out to crash sites or murder scenes or whatever. You don't get a choice to walk away. You're trapped in that. Whereas you and I, we can turn the TV off. Or you don't have to watch YouTube and hear a story about someone, a graphic story. You can choose to walk away. In fact, if some of you guys watched the video that I did just a couple of days ago, there was a gentleman that was in the chat that said, hey, I can't keep up. I can't take this anymore. I can't keep listening to this. This is too emotional for me. I'm going to sign off. Well, Neena couldn't do that. Neena couldn't just sign off. She had to be tormented every day, covering some of the most graphic stories. And she talked about in her interview how she would look forward to just those stories where she could talk about positive things. But as I watched her interview, which we'll look at her interview, I've looked into her aura, and what I got from her was that she faced a lot of pressure in her job, that she wasn't really happy in her job, and that there was a lot of pressure in her job. And she talked about it in the interview how, you know, you guys could just turn the TV off whenever you want, but we as news anchors have to cover some of the most tragic stories each day. And, you know, sometimes it could be difficult to process that. And as I listened to her and I started thinking back to her story, because this young lady will go into another part of her story, she also faced her own losses that she never was able to get over, ever. And so she added that with having to listen to these tragic stories, also being away from her family, and all of that in combination took a huge toll on her emotions. And then the enemy came in, and all he did was amplify and torment her with all those thoughts each night, as she also battled the loss of her own that we'll talk about. But before we talk about that, we will go into this bio on this website and see if we can learn a little bit more about her. So here is she is. She was very stunning. Literally, you would look at her on the outside, and that's why we cover these stories, because a lot of people see individuals like her and they're like, no way, there's no way she could have done it. How? She had everything she wanted. She was literally perfect. She was Barbie. I mean, she had perfect hair, she had perfect figure, she had perfect face, she had everything. She had a perfect job. She had a fiance. So people, they look at that. That's all they look at, or they look at her smile here, and they think that is the ultimate image of happiness. But behind the smile, there lurks the enemy. And he takes people and he torments them and he tears them down. And he picks people like this young lady because he knows this person has influence. And he wants people who have influence because he wants to put this person in the limelight so that it could be portrayed, everybody can see her, and then people who may not have what she has, may not even have the looks that she has, the accolades, the success, husband, spouse, and they see her and they're like, man, if she did it, then there's no hope for me. If she can't make it, I can't. Why don't I go out and do the same thing? You see? So that's why he does this. He gets people like Chesley and other individuals because he knows he can take out more people that way. The enemy is very evil, he's very conniving, and it is a spiritual battle that we are dealing with, especially this year, that we talked about in the beginning of the year in January. We said, when we talked about Chesley Chris, that we should be prayed up this year because there was going to be a lot more like this. Because what he does is he takes individuals that have high accolades, that have the image of perfection in our minds, and he torments them to the point where they feel they are alone. They are deceived into thinking. They are deceived into thinking they are alone. And then he isolates them and he puts in their mind that their life is hopeless, that there's no way out. This is the only way that they'll find rest and peace. Remember what Chesley said, rest and peace. It's a lot of the same things that goes in the minds of individuals that struggle with these thoughts. And he says, oh, this is the way you'll find rest and peace. He says those words and they think, oh, this is the only way out. And then they feel alone and they box themselves in. They don't let anyone in. And so no one can help because no one knows. People just see a smile and they're like, oh, look, she looks happy. So they don't know anything's wrong. And so unfortunately, this also can wreak havoc on those that know the individual because they're thinking, oh, well, she looks so happy. Well, that's what the enemy does. He creates in their mind that they should not tell anyone. They think they need to show this strength. And then she has a background of being an athlete. And like I said, a lot of athletes have that external strength that they carry around because that's what they've been trained to do as athletes. Never show that you have an injury. Always show that you're strong. A lot of athletes play when they're injured, and you would never even know because they exude this aura of strength, and then they carry that and they utilize that as a shield throughout their life, even after being in athletics. Or so you can see that with Chesley. You see that with this young lady here. There was also another lady. I think her name is Katie, guys. Katie Meyer. I think that was her name. I don't know. I might have her name wrong. Mayer or Meyer, but a lot of the athletes, they do this and you would never know. So let's see this bio here. Neena Pacholke joined the news team in May 2017. That was after she graduated from USF. After beginning as a multimedia journalist, Neena has been a co-anchor on Wake Up Wisconsin since February of 2019. So she's been in Wisconsin for a couple of years. And notice the correlation here. Interesting, guys. She moved from Florida in 2019. The same year, Chesley Chris moved from North Carolina to New York. Notice something there? They both moved away from home 2019. Couple years have passed in isolation away from their family members and friends. Not isolation, but in separation from people close, their close-knit support systems. Chesley and Neena both moved away from home 2019. How many years have passed since then? That's 20, 21, 22. That's about almost 3 years away from, and hers is definitely 3 years away from her support system. So that's another factor at play. A lot of people that are near and dear to her. She is in Wisconsin. I mean, come on, Wisconsin doesn't have much going on there. She does talk about in an interview how she was a little hesitant about going to Wisconsin and eventually liked it and stayed. But that to me, I think it was just a front. You know, some people, again, they go around and they wear these masks. Like everything is Mary Poppins and flowery and dandy. But in reality, no. It's just a outer shell of strength because they don't want anyone to know that they are going through anything and they don't want to show any sense of vulnerability, to be vulnerable. She also produces and anchors the 11 a.m. newscast. Neena was born in, we talked about that before, Chattanooga, Tennessee. She grew up in Tampa, Florida. She graduated from the university. We talked about that. This bio seems to be the same as the other one. She had a bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism, so she wanted to always be a news anchor, minoring in leadership skills at the University of South Florida, and graduated May 2017. While at USF, she was a member of the women's basketball team from 2013 to 2016. During her final semester, she was an anchor and reporter for the Florida Focus, a news brief that aired on the local PBS. The summer before her senior year at USF, she had the privilege to intern at 95.5 WPLJ in New York City. Wow, so she went over to New York and got some more broadcasting skills. She was also an intern for the video production team at Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa, and we'll talk a little bit about why she has a connection with causes related to cancer. Believe it or not, Neena was a Green Bay Packers fan before even moving to the, let me see if I can get this off, the Badger State, as her mom's side of the family is originally from Wisconsin. Oh, interesting. See the pattern there. Very interesting that her parents are from, or her mother is. She loves everything about North Central Wisconsin, especially all the local coffee shops, squeaky cheese curds, and weekend escape to the Northwoods. And again, you cannot take everything for face value, guys. Do not take everything for face value. Deep down inside, I do feel Neena did struggle with the move. She may have stayed there. It depends on her reasoning. Maybe it was a financial reason. Maybe it was a comfort of, oh, I'm already here. I have all the success here. I've advanced here. Because it is difficult. It's very difficult as a news anchor to advance. We're going to go over one of her interviews. She talks about it. You start out when you're first a news anchor. You start out and you do some of the most difficult parts of being a news anchor, and that's going out and doing all the labor of interviewing people in the field and going out to the crash scenes and all that and stuff, and interviewing, the different people involved in those different stories that you have to cover. And that's kind of like the hard work of being a news anchor. And a lot of news anchors, when they start out their careers, they start out there and they don't really like that part of their career. And their ultimate goal is to get, to be able to be, in front of the screen, meaning where you're the news anchor, where you're on the camera and you're in the station and you're actually the one talking to the people that are out in the field. And you're like, oh, let's turn it over to Kelly, who's out in the field talking about the crash scene. So Kelly, what is going on out there? So people want to be that person, the one that's, at the station, in the comfort of the station, in front of the camera. And that's the ultimate goal, to get there, right? And it usually takes a lot of work to get to that point. And actually, Neena's gonna talk about that. And she managed to work her way up to get to that part, the coveted position of being in the station. And she, I think once she got to that point, I think she accomplished so much, she probably was like, might as well just stay here. But I think also that has an effect. But I really don't think, I think there was a lot of assortment of factors at play that kind of all in combination became too much for her. So that was one factor. Again, you cannot just take one thing and say, oh, that's one thing. No, it's a lot of things. Another thing, let's talk about, let's see if I can find that story. Okay, here. We're going to talk about this part, a tragedy that she faced. So first, the athletic component. Second, moving away 2019 from her hometown, separating from people close to her, even though, yes, she has a fiance in her new location, and that could still have a wear and tear on the emotions. Third, the trying and the emotional toll that being a news anchor puts on people. And there's another background tragedy to Neena. Just a second, guys, my battery's dying. So Neena faced a very sad tragedy in her early years. She had a love of her life, someone she loved very deeply. In fact, some of the stories and articles that I read about her relationship with this young man, seems to just suggest that her bond with him was so deep and close-knit. I think that he was her first love. They connected so deeply into in their soul that it was like a strong soul connection between the two. And she loved this young man so much. she stayed with him by his side when he had cancer. So she had lost a high school sweetheart. This was her first love. In high school, you usually experience love for the first time, deep, deep love emotions in high school. And she had a sweetheart that she bonded with very deeply. Very deeply. So the video of the news anchor speaking about losing her high school sweetheart has resurfaced following the news of her death by apparent self-conclusion over the weekend. Um, and this young man, when he had gotten cancer, she told him, she promised him that she was going to be by his side through it all. And she did. Even when he lost all of his hair, she, would encourage him because he loved his hair. And so she would encourage him and just be there to support him. And she loved this young man all the way till his very last breath and was there to support him through it all. And, it was very hard for her to overcome this tragic loss. She never did overcome it, actually. She channeled her pain through joining, cancer societies and raising funds and showing support to that. And she also channeled it through her basketball aspirations in college. So she focused a lot. She kind of distracted herself through basketball, and also showing support to a lot of cancer societies and organizations and stuff like that. But in reality, she never ever got over the pain. So she carried that pain around, this heartbreak around that continued to torment her. And then that pain began to get magnified as she had to cover a lot of tragic stories, some stories that even were similar to some of the loss that she experienced in her life. And so it was like adding more pain each day, having to try to she never got over the pain of losing this young man from brain cancer, but having to kind of deal with the emotions with that, plus being tormented each day with all these tragic stories that she had to cover. And she felt trapped, and going home, taking all that pain home each night and not knowing how to cope with it and just being tormented with it. And this young lady had such a deep heart that she would carry these pains with her in her core. And sometimes, in my belief, and I don't know, I wasn't there, but my belief is at night she would be tormented with all these stories, and then the loss of Jordan, which was her first love. And she would cry at night and it would be so unbearable for her. It would be tormenting to her, and the enemy would just keep tormenting her with those thoughts. And she never ever got to escape them. She never escaped the thoughts. So let's talk about this interview. In a 2016 interview, Pacholke spoke with the MoFit Cancer Society about losing her boyfriend, Jordan Harris. This was her first love. This was someone she really connected with. And he contracted a rare brain cancer. Pacholke said she and Harris met during their freshman year of high school and were preparing to start their freshman year at the University of South Florida. You see, they were so deeply in love. They were planning their whole future together. They were planning to go to college together, where they were going to live, all of it. They were soulmates. This was the love of her life. And she had to watch the love of her life die and be tormented, go through days of depression, tears, agony, pain, lose all of his hair, and just the pain and the agony of a high schooler. And he loved his hair as well, as I mentioned. Go through all that pain, and she had to comfort him through that. And imagine being someone in high school having to deal with that. I mean, you're barely even trying to process your emotions as it is, and you're in high school, walking someone through that you love so much through a cancer. That's a lot for a young person. So she talks about meeting him in freshman year. So she was with him all throughout college. High school. That's 4 years in high school with this young man in a relationship, that connection. And they were planning their future, planning to go to South Florida together. He died in 2013 from primitive neuroectodermal tumors in his brain. Oh, it's so sad. And it's sad how rare it was that it just unfortunately happened to him. She said, I just remember sitting there, all of us around him. I remember holding his hand as he passed away. She was there the day he passed away. A high school young girl, and we're going to call her girl, she was in high school, having to hold the hand of her very first love as he died. And she was there the day he was diagnosed, all the way to every single torment, to the medical treatments, to the chemo, all of it. This young lady had to grow up prematurely before any other normal high schoolers, have to grow up. Imagine high schoolers are thinking about their proms and all the, whatever cool things they do in high school. And she was here caring for someone she loved deeply who had plans of having a long future together, probably even marriage. She said, I knew it was going to be hard, but I always told him I'd be there through it all. And that's a lot of pressure on someone young. It sounds like, oh yeah, that's so loving, it's typical of someone who loves someone. But for someone her age, being with someone through it all, through cancer is a lot to have on one person. You have to understand the toll that it took on this young lady, and she never ever got over it. That's something important you have to understand. This young lady, bits and times she would distract herself with different things, basketball, her news anchor career. And that news anchor career really didn't help her distract herself because she had to cover so many horrific stories. I think there was also a story on her YouTube that I saw where she was covering kind of a similar story where a young man, an older man, he was a veteran. He died of, I think, cancer too. He died of some health issue. And I was thinking in my mind as I was watching this YouTube, and I was like, oh my gosh, this young lady here, Neena, was covering this story about a veteran, an older guy who died of cancer, who's tormented and stuff. And I'm like, man, I know what she was going through. She was inside crying and thinking about Jordan. As she was covering that story, she was thinking back about all of the pain and agony she had to watch Jordan go through. And then she had to take that home at night in her bed all by herself as the enemy brings back all those memories, and she's tormented each night crying about it. You see, that's kind of how she had to live. She had to go to work and stories would come up, these graphic, horrible stories, and some stories that would even trigger her own pain and grief that she had not gotten over. And she had to be tormented by herself at night. And she felt she had to be by herself because this young lady wanted to carry it all by herself. Neena wanted to carry it all by herself. She didn't want to get help. She could have easily, she had all the resources. She could have gotten a therapist. She had all the finances to do that. She had friends and family that loved her. Her sister adored her. Her parents. She had her fiance. She had all it, but she didn't want it. She didn't want to get help. That's the thing. She didn't want any help. She wanted to try to hide it away. And the reason why is because of the society expectations. Society shames mental health battles. Society shames that. And so people go around feeling ashamed to share when they're going through something. And then you add upon that someone who's an athlete. And in the athlete world, as we talked about, a lot of them already are trained to show strength, never show weakness. Never let your opponent know you're weak or you're battling something. And you gotta play through your injuries. I mean, you ask any athlete, a lot of them will tell you they've had, sprained, ankles or whatever, injuries, and they will play on that injury. People in football, they'll get a concussion and get it back up and play again. I mean, they just the crazy things that they do. And so you're adding that to her. You're adding the society expectations and how they put this stigma on people who are battling depression or self-conclusion thoughts, because this young lady had been tormented. I'm telling you, she was tormented because not only did she not get over the pain of losing this love of her life and having to watch him wither away in her eyes. There was nights when Jordan would be in so much pain. He would be, vomiting for whatever, or whatever. He would have the reactions from the chemo, and she would be there. He went through a lot of psychological pain, agony, torment, depression when he lost his hair. It was a huge loss for him, and she had to be there to comfort him through all that. And so she had to replay that in her mind. And then she has to go to work, and now she has to cover all these horrible stories. Some stories that remind her of the things that she experienced, the tormenting things that she experienced when she watched the love of her life die right in front of her. And she is trapped. She has no choice. She has to keep going to work. See, we can turn the TV off. We can say, hey, I'm not going to watch the news for the next month. I'm going to fast from watching the news. She can't do that. She's trapped in a job that she thought she was going to love. But the reality is all these factors became too much. Unable to cope with the tragic loss of the love of her life. Being moved away from close-knit people in her life, away from mother, father, sister, friends, the close-knit people that she grew up with in Florida. People don't realize how drastic that is. And it's been 3 years now. And, I don't know what her relationship was with her fiance, but I think she kind of didn't want him to know that she was going through all these things. So she, just like she did on her job, she carried that smile, that bubbly external personality. She did the same thing with her boyfriend. She never let her new boyfriend in her heart. She never let him in. In fact, she carried this wall up. She had the sad thing about Pacholke, even though she was engaged and had this guy she was engaged to, he never got in like Jordan did. Meaning he never got into her heart. He never penetrated her heart. Because when she lost Jordan, she lost the will to truly open up fully to love again because she was afraid she would lose that love again. She was afraid. She's like, well, what if I do let this? Because people do it all the time. People get in relationships and they may still have this wall up. It may look like on the outside that they're in love or they're fully, vulnerable to the person they're with. But you can't always be fooled by what you see on the outside. External things aren't real. You have to understand that. You got to look deeper into what's going on. And I don't believe in my spirit Neena ever fully opened and became fully vulnerable with her fiance. I think she had a wall up because she was always afraid that, what if I lose him too? Like I lost Jordan. So I can't let this guy fully in. I mean, I'll let him in a little bit, but he can't fully come in. He can't come into my heart. So because she had this wall up, she always, just like she did on the news, on the job, she carried this shell of happiness and bubbly and everything's all dandy with her boyfriend, her fiance. So he probably didn't really know fully the emotional battle that she was going through. He had no clue because she just carried this external shell of happiness and joy and peace. And then she had this external wall up. So he never really penetrated. He never got in. He never got into her heart because she was too afraid that I'm not going to lose somebody else. I'm too afraid that if I let this guy fully into my soul and my heart and open my heart to him, I may lose him just like I lost Jordan, the one person that I fully gave my soul to. She really, I watched a lot, I read a lot of interviews, and a lot of people talked about the relationship that she had with Jordan, and it was a very deep soul connection that they had. They were soul mates. I mean, the bond was just, it was incredible, the things people talked about. That's how strong that bond was. And when you experience something like that so deep as a young child, a young person, and then you lose it in the traumatic way that she did, and she had to slowly watch the love of her life die. She slowly had to watch him die. That is tragic. She had to watch him suffer in the worst way. So when you experience something like that so premature in your life, then when you become an adult and you never knew how to cope with it, it can affect your process or ability to formulate healthy relationships as an adult. So people need to understand that, because people think, well, she had a fiance. Like, how did she end it when she was just in her life when she was about to get married in 2 months? Because none of that matters. That's the thing. They're all distractions. They're all distractions. They're all little external things to make you believe that everything's okay, but it's not. Everybody, she's going home at night and she's feeling alone and she's having to replay the pain, and she cried a lot at night about Jordan. And then now that pain is being amplified because she has to cover all these horrible graphic stories that some of them even remind her of the loss that she had. And so it just resurfaces that pain. And so she's going home carrying all these images in her mind and the tormenting pain and feeling trapped because she can't ever avoid that pain. And even if she let her fiance in, he would never be able to truly understand. So in reality, she feels she is alone because she doesn't think anyone can truly understand the pain that she's going through. So she felt she can only be able to cope with it alone, but no one can. Eventually, it will become too much because the enemy will continue to torment and torment and torment the mind until it becomes unbearable. And then he will tell the person that the only way that they will find rest and peace is to end it all. And that is why I'm telling you, truly, the only way that you can really get past it is through calling out to God, speaking his word over the situation, getting the therapy you need, having spiritual support, people there that can pray and intercede for you, because there is no other way. I'm telling you, there is no other way. God is the way. I've talked to some people recently who were thinking about self-conclusion. They're telling me that they went through self-conclusion and I didn't even know. And the one thing they told me, that was the only way they got past it, they said, I mean, I had family, I had friends, I had everything. But the only way I got through it was through getting on my knees and calling out to God and having him help me through it. And it's true. I mean, I experienced it and I couldn't find any other answer, guys. No other answer. It doesn't matter what success you have. It doesn't matter what beauty, fame, intelligence, career, all that stuff. Yes, go to get counseling, definitely. And there's a lot of other mental health tools that you can use. Having your support group that we talked about, speaking the word of God over your life, working on it each day. But I'm telling you, even if you have all those things, if you leave out God, I'm sorry, there's just no other way out. I'm just going to be very truthful with you guys, very truthful. And you may not agree with me, but I'm going to speak from my heart and I'm going to speak from my experience. Because I've had those same thoughts, those same experiences. And the only way I'm here to talk to you today on this YouTube is through me crying out to God, going to him in prayer, and having him help me through it. Because we're all going to go through these thoughts. We're going to go through these experiences because life is not easy. It is not. And you will face these moments in your life. And when the counselor is gone, when your friends are not there, when, maybe some things you would do to help you cope through it is not there. No one's there late at night when you're all by yourself in those 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning when people are asleep. The only person that you have left to lean on is God. I have to tell you the truth. I am so sorry if people are offended or don't want to hear it. If you don't, I apologize to those people, but I'm going to speak the truth for those people who are open to listen and hear. And then I would pray that those people can be saved, through these trying times. Okay? And you have to also understand, it doesn't matter if you're a Christian or whatever religion you are. It's that relationship. It's a relationship factor with God. You have to have a relationship with him, and you have to know his word, because you have to know the word, because those are his promises to you, and you speak those words out, because death and life are in the power of the tongue. So if you don't know the word and you don't know who God is, meaning you don't know, you learn who he is through his word, through prayer, through spending time with him. If you don't know the Bible, you don't have any way to speak out against the thoughts that you're hearing in your mind, because that's the enemy. He's tormenting the mind. So let's go back in this, guys. Sorry, I keep going on tangents here, but this is going to be kind of like flowing from the spirit. So Pacholke wrote about her grief on her blog. We're going to look at her grief because we want to go into her mind to see the depths of her pain. We may not be able to go too deep into her mind because, of course, not everything's online. She said, "You still have bad days, but in the end, they say everything happens for a reason. Through this sentence, Pacholke is telling you she goes through bad days, days where she is crying and in agony and pain because of her loss of Jordan. And this has been many years after it happened that she still has these days where she just completely breaks down and feels alone. It doesn't matter if she has a fiance. It doesn't matter if she has sisters and families and friends. None of that matters. She has to take that alone home because no one knows how she feels. No one knows the bond and the loss and the pain and that she experienced, and it was only between her and Jordan. So no one else on the outside can truly understand how she feels. That's what she's thinking. So she takes that pain and carries it alone home, at home by herself in pain when no one's there, where she can no longer hide behind her smile on TV or hide behind her smile when she's in front of her fiance, when she's wearing the mask of the smile that is just a mask. It's a uniform. You know, when you go to work, you wear your business suits or whatever you wear, your uniform, or you go to school, you have a uniform. You have a code of conduct of how you carry yourself when you represent that organization. But at the end of the day, when you are all alone, you have to deal with those thoughts by yourself. And no one could understand. She says, oh, you still have those bad days, but in the end, everything happens for a reason. That's deflection. Let's strip that apart. What she's really saying is she's going through a lot of pain. She's going through a lot of agony, and she's having a hard time coping with the pain of losing Jordan. She has a lot of bad days, but she has to pretend to carry a smile. And I'm going to show you this through her Twitter in a little bit. Part of me questions that. So she said, they say everything happens for a reason, right? People keep saying that. Part of me questions that. She went through a period of questioning God, angry at God. She was very angry at God. Why did you take Jordan away? Why did this happen? Why did you do this? She questioned this a lot throughout her life. Pacholke never got over it. Never, never, never. She was mad and and rightfully so. You know, she didn't understand why this happened, that it was unfair, that, you know, she doesn't understand why horrible things like this happen to good people. And she carried this pain every day, guys. It was so sad because she would have to go to work, pretend like she was happy, pretend like everything was dandy. And you would notice, because on these different newscasts, she was the one that was always extra happy than everybody else, because it was a role that she was playing. It wasn't really what she was really feeling at that time, but it was a role. It was kind of like you're cast for a role on a TV show or whatever, a play, and you have to portray that person. That's what she was doing. So if you notice, if you watch her on some of those different shows or whatever on her, when she was reporting on live, she would be very happy and bubbly and animated, just like Chesley Chris. Just like Chesley Chris. You could basically put both of their videos together and you will see the same person, just externally they look different. But the way that they portray themselves, they're the same person pretty much. Because they kind of handled pain the same way, a lot of deflection. You know, she went and experienced a lot of questioning of why. And I think she was really angry at God, angry at the circumstances, angry at the universe, because a lot of people believe in a universe too. Some people don't believe in God, they believe in the universe. So, but she was angry at the whole thing, understandably enough. But I'm speaking from my spirit. This is just a theory. I don't know her. I don't know really what's going on. I'm just speaking from the spirit of what I think. So again, this is just an opinion, guys. It's not like I know her, but I'm speaking from my spirit of what I feel from what I've seen. She said, it sucks you don't have that person to text all day. So again, when you experience death, and this is a person that was so close to her, he used to text her all day throughout the day, and now the phone is silent. You can't call that person anymore. You don't get the text that you used to get. It is such a tormenting, horrible experience, especially for someone so young who's never known love, experienced love, and the first time she experiences it with someone she planned a future with. They were going to go to college together. They were going to spend their life together. I think, in fact, they were thinking marriage one day. I mean, of course, they were really young, but in their young minds, they wanted to be together forever, you know? And that person's gone. And now all of a sudden, when you got all these texts all day, now you get nothing. The phone is silent. You will never get a text message from him again. And you don't know why. Why did this happen? And then you start questioning, period. Why do all these bad things happen to good people? Because now she's a news anchor and she has to see all these horrible stories about people being brutally, horrifically murdered, or people having these ailments and sicknesses that they die from, or all kinds of stories they have to cover, all these things. And so then you really start questioning, why does this happen to good people? And and she says, I still have his morals to carry with me. So Jordan helped shape her life from those years on. She took all the things she learned from those 4 years in her relationship with Jordan, and she pretty much used it as her moral compass throughout the rest of her life. Even when she was, imagine, Jordan is the love of her life, right? And then she gets with a new guy, a guy that she never let in. She had this wall up. He never fully got in and penetrated her heart, period, even though she was engaged and everything. And so while she's with this guy, she thinks about Jordan, about the memories she had with Jordan, and how the depth of love she had for Jordan. And this new person, even though, yeah, she's engaged and everything, that's a part of life, but comparing him to Jordan, how he doesn't really captivate her the way Jordan did. And then that just brings up more pain at the end of the night. And then you think, and you go back and that constantly is a reminder of Jordan. This poor young lady just was tormented in her life and didn't know how to get out and felt alone, in my opinion. Caitlin Pacholke is her sister. She's her older sister. She confirmed to the Tampa Bay News Time that Neena died by self-conclusion. And she said, sometimes you don't know what people are going through. This is true. You guys need to understand that. And this is one thing why we cover these stories so much, because you have to understand, you cannot be deceived by what you see on the outside, because you'll never understand the intricate complications of these tragedies. They're not as simple as you think, where you think it's just somebody who's happy who has it all and you don't understand. There's so much deep pain that a lot of individuals go through, and they carry a mask of happiness to shield them away from the world of being vulnerable, because they feel ashamed of it, and they know that the society treats mental illness and pain and depression as a stigma, and so they feel ashamed of the pain they're going through. They feel ashamed of the thoughts that they're experiencing. It's a sense of shame and embarrassment. Like, they feel like if they feel vulnerable, if they're going to self-conclude or want to self-conclude that they're not strong enough to be able to withstand the struggles of the world. And so in their mind, they feel it's an embarrassment. And so they hide it away and they make it look like, oh, look, I'm strong. But see, that's something we need to change in our society. We need to change and stop portraying pain and depression as a stigma. It's not a stigma. It is the norm. A lot of people go through depression. It's actually quite common in our society, very common, especially in America. A lot of Americans go through it because of the high expectations in our country. But people hide it. A lot of us hide it. And we wear these smiles, and social media has made it worse, because Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, what's that all about? Posting selfies or putting all these filters on to make it filters. What is that? It covers up reality, right? So that's what Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all these social media outlets, they teach us to cover up reality. the reality of our pain, the reality of the things we go through, the reality of our struggles. We post all these happy things online as if our life is perfect, when in reality, it is not. And so constantly covering up reality is what's causing all this pain and agony to overwhelm people and feel a sense of hopelessness. And then the enemy can come in and then he can wreak havoc because his goal is to make us take our life. He wants that. It is so sad. That's why the way out is truly through calling out and leaning upon God so that he can help you get through it. He can walk you through those times when you're alone. And yes, I do recommend counseling and other things. I have a couple videos on here where we talk about a lot of the things like counseling, reading your scriptures, and having your flashcards that you can put your scriptures on that relate to the issues you're dealing with, and you can speak those words out, because death and life are in the power of the tongue. Words are very powerful. People don't realize the power of your words. They think it's just words, but no, it manifests things in your life. So when you speak certain things out, if you keep speaking those things out, it draws the energy to you. That's why a lot of times on the community posts, I post a lot of affirmations and different things like that, because the words you speak truly can manifest your destiny, whether you want it to be good or whether you want it to be bad. And also having that support from others. But at the end of the day, guys, even though with all those mental health factors and tools that we have, at the end of the day, guys, when you're alone at night, and it's usually early in the morning where the enemy will get you. He'll get you around those vulnerable times when people are not available. 12 o'clock through 6 o'clock a.m., 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. Those are usually the times he really will torment you the most, because he knows nobody's around usually at that time. I mean, maybe you'll get lucky to get your friend on the phone, but she might be too tired. She got to go to work in the morning, whatever. So at the end of the day, you have to have God who can truly help you navigate through those painful times. The times where you feel like you just can't get through it. See, it's so sad because her sister, Pacholke, is in a state of confusion right now. And she's blaming herself, and she's like, I didn't see the signs. I don't know what happened, when it was not even her fault. Because, as she said, sometimes you don't know what people are going through. No matter how much you think you know someone, you really don't. You only know what they share with you or what they want you to know. She said, my sister had access to every resource you could imagine. She had it all, guys. She had the money to get whatever help she needed, but she didn't want the help. She did not want the help. She didn't. She wanted to try to do it on her own. And then when it became too much and the enemy kept tormenting her and tormenting her and tormenting her, she completely shut down, and she felt the only way she could find rest and peace is through ending it all, which was a lie. It was a lie, guys. It was a lie. It was a lie. Because the enemy is a liar. He's deceptive. And I have to emphasize that it is a lie, because you don't find rest and peace when you self-conclude. You don't. There is another world. There's another spiritual world where we face judgment. I don't like talking about it on this page, but people who are believers know about that other world. And so self-conclusions is not the way to rest in peace. God is. God is the way to rest in peace. Leaning on him, crying out to him, asking him to help you break through that pain. He'll help you. He will. He will. You deserve to live. But see, because in life, you'll go through struggles, you will have pain, you will experience depression. That's a part of life. But there's this song that says, late in the midnight hour, God is going to turn it around. He's going to work in your favor. He will. Weeping may endure in the night. These words are, people think these are just words. Sometimes we sing these songs and we quote these scriptures and we don't really understand the significance of them and why God gave these things to us. but they all have meaning. Weeping may endure for in the night. That's the time where the enemy gets you guys. He gets you 12 through 6 a.m. But in the night hours, when he knows you're alone with your thoughts, you can't fake it anymore. You're not at work distracting yourself with your job and pretending to be happy. You're not on Instagram or Facebook putting up a filtered picture or video of where you went to lunch and showing off your Starbucks that you ordered, your strawberry latte, whatever you ordered. You can't hide behind that stuff anymore when you're alone late in the midnight hour. You only are alone with your thoughts and the enemy tormenting you. So in those times, you need to cry out to God so that he can help you fight through it. And merely just crying out with nothing, I mean, yeah, it'll help you. But when you have those scriptures there, when you know the word and you can fight the enemy with the word of God, you say, no, I come against that thought. I'm the head and not the tail. I'm above and not beneath. I can do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens me. When you have the words that you can fight the enemy and fight the thoughts, it empowers you through those trying nights where you are alone. But look at these words. The words of Caitlin are so powerful, guys. You really need to really memorialize these words, because these words really do speak to a lot of the struggles that people go through and how they carry the image. She says, sometimes you don't know what people are going through. Exactly. No matter how much you think you know someone. Never get too comfortable with what you see on the outside. You don't know. You don't know. That's why it's imperative that you always be kind to everyone. Just because someone looks happy, you don't know what they went through. You don't know what they experienced that morning, what kind of loss they may have had in their life. You just don't know. No matter what you think you know about someone. She said, my sister had access to every resource you could imagine, meaning she could have gotten counseling. She could have talked to friends and family. She had a fiance. She had everything she could have asked for, but she didn't want the help. She was loved by everybody. So it doesn't matter if a person has all the love and popularity. None of that brings happiness. She was so good at her job. Again, that will not bring happiness. A job's not going to do it. All the friends in the world's not going to do it. A fiance is not going to do it. Beauty and a perfect body is not going to do it. Cute outfits is not going to do it. A title is not going to do it. None of it's going to make you look. We've talked about these stories so many times, and a lot of them have all the things you can think of. Accolades, achievement, intelligent. They're great at athlete. They're great at athletics. They're, we have a lawyer. Chesley was a lawyer. She was Miss USA. She was, extremely stunning. I mean, perfect hair, everything. People coveted her. They wanted to be her, literally. None of that, the whole takeaway you have to understand is none of that's going to make anyone happy. None of that. You have to have happiness inside, which is, in my opinion, I'm only speaking for my opinion, is a foundation with a relationship with God. He gives you hope. I've come across so many people, guys, in my life and talked to so many different people. And I've even talked to them and asked, I remember there was one young man, I'll never forget what he said. He wasn't a believer before. He used to not be a believer. He didn't believe in God or anything like that. And he said, and then eventually he did give his life to God. But he said when he wasn't saved and he didn't, give his life to God, he had no relationship with God. He was atheist at the time. He said he used to live in fear. He said he used to always be afraid of death, always afraid of the unknown. And he always felt this sense of hopelessness. Like he didn't have hope. He felt empty inside. That's what he told me when he was not a believer. And he said when he eventually gave his life to God, it was a complete different feeling. He said he started to feel hope. And that feeling of fear that he had went away. He didn't feel fear anymore. And he said, for the first time in my life, I felt hope. I felt complete. That emptiness was gone. I was fulfilled. And that I never forgot what he said, because of course I know that feeling. But the thing is, I've always been saved. I've pretty much been saved since I was 5 years old. So I never knew what it was like to not be saved. So it was very eye-opening for me to hear from someone who had experienced both sides of life, being an atheist at one point, not believing, and then giving their life to God. And then when I heard the experience, I was like, wow. And then, talking to different people and hearing similar stories and beginning to realize, even through my life, going through things that I've experienced. And truly I was like thinking, like, how did I get through those times when I was, ready to end it all? And I was like, man, it was God. It was God. It was him. He was the only one that helped me get through all those things. I mean, I remember days of just speaking it out, ready to just say goodbye. But God gave me that hope to get through. Just getting on my knees, crying out to him, speaking his word, and having him bring that hope back. Because weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. And it doesn't matter what you have on the outside. You cannot utilize external things to foster joy. It will never be enough. It may give you a little bit of satisfaction for a little while, but it's not sustaining joy. It won't sustain you. So Pacholke grew up in Tampa, Florida, lettered 3 seasons as a point guard at USF. She joined WOW as a multimedia journalist in May 2017. Let's go up to her blog. Hopefully we can hear some of her additional words so we can kind of understand what she had gone through. So this is her blog, and after Jordan died, she really went on a campaign to truly channel her pain through advocating for people who had gone through suffering cancer, and especially kids, because Jordan technically was a kid. He may have been in high school, and you think when you're in high school, you think you're grown and everything. No, when you're in high school, you're still a kid, basically. And so she really, truly channeled her life as a way to speak out and be an advocate for and a support system for kids that are battling cancer. And so here's her blog. And she said, kids get cancer too. And this is by Neena Pacholke. Let's read it because we really want to hope and see that she will share with us some of the pain that she went through. Children's Cancer Center, making a difference in the lives of many. This is her words, guys. Hey bloggers, time for a more uplifting post to read today. When Jordan was still alive, that's her past boyfriend, and healthy, we would volunteer our time at the Children's Cancer Center, which is a well-known nonprofit organization whose goal is to better the lives of those in the Tampa Bay area who have a child with cancer. The nights that Jordan and I would volunteer, we would spend more time with the little cancer patients and do different arts and crafts or play games to get their minds off of the reality that they are living in, while the parents of the children would attend a support group upstairs. I chose to inform my bloggers about this wonderful and loving organization, as it helps hundreds and hundreds of families that are truly in need. It had been hard for me over the past year to volunteer, as it brings back many memories of Jordan. Let's read that again, guys. It had been hard for me over the past year to volunteer, as it brings back many memories of Jordan. So you see, oh, so sad. Neena had to relive pain of losing Jordan throughout the years after he died. Different things would bring up and elicit memories, from volunteering at the cancer center to reporting on different stories to being in this not new relation, they've been together, but to being in the relationship with their fiance. Different things that would kind of pop up and then remind her of Jordan, and then she would go through this spiral of pain and agony and torment all alone. And then again, you add the relocating to another state, being away from her support system, and truly feeling alone, because no one else she felt could really understand the pain that she felt when she lost Jordan, because it really was between her and Jordan, the pain that they both shared. It was like a bond that they shared together through his battle with cancer. And no one in her mind could truly understand that and could truly help her get through it. She felt that, you know, in my opinion. This is just my opinion, guys. Tonight I had the opportunity to go back and volunteer at CCC, and I could not have been any happier. It was a reminder of why I need to continue to come on Friday nights, because the two amazing outcomes are cancer kids smiling when you would not think it is possible, and the volunteers like me who feel so great about ourselves as we can help put these smiles on the kids' face. Below is a video that tells all about the CCC and what the mission is. So here's the video. Here are the kids. I don't know if I want to play it because I'm not sure if it's copyright, but we'll play a little bit of it. If it has music, I might not play it though. Uh-oh.
You know, if you can imagine, life's just chugging along. You know, you go in to the doctor's office, and the doc says, hey, have a seat. I need to talk to you about something that doesn't look right.
See, that first part that he just mentioned, that is exactly what happened to Jordan. Life was going good for him and Neena, and they were just in love, and years had gone by since they met in freshman year, and they were planning their whole life. And all of a sudden he goes to the doctor and he gets sat down and he's told he has cancer. And so he has to sit Neena down and tell her, I have brain cancer. And I'm pretty sure of course it was a pretty bad stage. So he had to tell her that he had X amount of time to live. So listen to these words, because they're telling you exactly what Neena had to experience on her journey with Jordan.
And he was diagnosed with sickle cell anemia probably when he was about maybe 8 weeks old.
Lauren was diagnosed with rhabdomyosarcoma. It's a tumor that was found between her spine and her stomach.
Joshua was diagnosed in June of 2011 with ALL, so that's leukemia.
February 17th of 2009, Melissa just fell to the ground. We were able to get her over to the hospital. They sent us immediately over to All Children's and said that she has osteosarcoma.
Children's Cancer Center is serving over 900 families in the Tampa Bay area. What we do is we provide support services, so it's financial, educational, and emotional assistance to kids and families going through childhood cancer, as well as chronic blood disorders like sickle cell.
More than anything, we're truly a conduit for these families to meet other families. We have over 24 support programs that are tailored to the kids' needs.
One of the programs that we offer is Big Buddy. So we match first-year medical students at USF with the sibling of a child that's diagnosed. This year we're supporting 15 different matches. SAIL stands for Students Achieving Through Interactive Learning. Since starting in November, we've averaged over 17 kids per Saturday that are able to get that educational help, mentoring, and tutoring. It also has interactive activities such as we have music and art and cooking classes and things that they may not have the opportunity to learn if it wasn't for the center.
We're very excited that in 2012 we were able to assist more families than ever. So 95 families, including 245 children, received gifts, food gift cards, and games and toys, all through our holiday adoption program.
Okay, so you guys probably get exactly what the Children's Cancer Center is about. But as I was watching that, I was trying to channel in to see what exactly did Neena feel. I think Neena probably, when she was volunteering, she felt a sense of comfort when she was there with the kids and being able to volunteer and help kids that probably experienced some of the cancer, same type of cancer, rare cancer that Jordan felt. But then at night when she would leave and go home, the pain of losing Jordan would come right back again. It was like a temporary Band-Aid. It was like comfort and happiness and pain and relief to be there and feel, you know, like she's making a difference. But then when she'd go home at night, she would cry about the loss of Jordan. So it, again, those memories would flood her at night when she's all alone. And she'd just cry and cry about losing Jordan and how she misses him and remembering the same, you know, symptoms she may have saw him go through, or the loss that she may have seen in some of the kids, and that they're battling through, and reminding her of her experiences with Jordan. So it was a comfort to her. It was like a short-term comfort. Like while she's there, she's enjoying it and she's feeling relief, happiness, and joy to be able to make a change in these kids' life. But then seeing some of the struggles that they were going through at night when she takes it home, it was like resurfacing all that pain all over again. So she says, time to get back to studying for finals until next time. And so again, she's using like the studies in college and everything kind of in basketball. She used a lot of that to distract her. It was distractors. So distractors, all it does is put a pause on the pain and agony that you fail to really deal with. It doesn't get rid of the pain. It doesn't heal the pain. All it does is put a temporary pause. It's as if, like, say you're watching a movie and then you put pause and you go and do whatever you're doing. You come back and press play. That's exactly what distractors do. So like her distractors were school, you know, studying, sports, really putting in a lot of her energy into leading that basketball team to their championship or whatever they won. And then now she started distracting herself with her career, but in reality, her career couldn't really help distract her because she had to cover all these tormenting stories that all it did was amplify the pain that she already was feeling. And then she had to go home and take home some of the images and different traumas that she's seen on her job. And you guys already know how news coverage is, what it does to you. You guys watch some of those stories on the news. And I know some of you, if you watch the news every day, if you're an empath, if any of you are empath and you know what empaths are, you take on the emotions and the pain of others. And so imagine you, that person who's an empath, and they watch the news every day. That person would be going through a lot of depression. Even if everything good in their life is going wonderful and dandy. I mean, even if everything in their life is going wonderful and dandy, if they are empath and they're watching all this tormenting stuff on the news, it can cause depression. Because all they do is absorb all of the pain of what other people are going through. So they take all that pain and then they're depressed and they're crying and sad about what someone else is going through. And then imagine that person is a news reporter. They don't get a choice. They can't turn off the news. They have to go and cover these very sad, tragic stories day in and day out, and they don't get a choice. They are stuck. And you're going to hear those very words a little later. This is going to be a pretty long video, guys, so I'm just letting you know now. You're going to hear an interview from her where she says those same very words. She will tell you what news anchors go through, but I just want to go through some of these blogs because we're trying to go into her mind and figure out what she was going through with the little information she gives us. So here, this is December 6th. I don't know what year it is, guys, but this is from her blog. She says, "Hey bloggers, today I woke up and realized I was missing my angel boyfriend more than usual." And this is a powerful sentence, you guys, because this is something she would be missing her boyfriend more than usual, angel boyfriend more than usual, throughout different parts of time in her life for the last few years, all the way up until she ended her life. She had to go through this. So listen to this sentence and you'll know exactly what I mean, because wasn't just one day, December 6th. This is something that she repeatedly felt throughout the many years past the time when Jordan passed away. So she said, "I woke up and I realized I was missing my angel boyfriend more than usual. It has been 13 months and 18 days since the love of my life." What did I tell you guys? The love of my life. I have not even read this blog yet. So I'm telling you guys what I'm feeling and channeling from the spirit. That this person, Jordan, was her soulmate. And she tells you right here in this blog that we were all reading together for the first time. She said, it has been 13 months and 18 days since the love of my life. That is a pretty significant person. Love of my life. That's someone she wanted to marry. That was her soulmate. That was the one person in the world that her soul truly connected to. What is higher than the love of your life? Meaning, if Jordan was the love of her life, what was her fiance? You know what I mean? I don't think that fiance, and I hope he doesn't see this video. I hope he doesn't see this video, Lord. But anyway, I don't think the fiance truly could compare to the love she felt for Jordan. I don't think so. Even though she may have appeared to have moved on the outside, on the inside, Jordan will forever be the love of her life. Forever. That's why I told you my theory is, these are all theories, guys, that she never let that new guy in. He was just kind of, it was this wall up. It was like this invisible wall. He was there, you know, they had a relationship, they were going to get married and stuff and have the traditional things in life. But I don't think he truly ever could take the place of the love of her life. Jordan. So let's read that again. She said, it's been 13 months and 18 days since the love of my life gained his angel wings from the rare form of brain cancer. Oh, that must have been so frustrating. Of all people, how does he be the one to get this rare brain cancer? That's something she questioned throughout life. Like, why? That was a big question that our sweet Neena had in her mind, is why? Very frustrating, and frustrating to her to not understand, you know. He is the main reason. He is the main reason behind my blog topic, and will continue. He had a significant impact on her life, you guys. Now, he wasn't the I don't want people to get distracted and think there's one thing that led up to this sad tragedy. There was a lot of factors at play. This was one of many. Like I was saying, we talked about all the factors that we listed, and there's an assortment of things that kind of became too much. So don't get distracted by it being one thing. It wasn't one thing. It was all too much of piled up of all this pain and agony and torment and feeling imprisoned in a job that continued to remind her of the pain that she was feeling, and having to continue to see other trauma, and being away from home, and her background of being an athletic person who carries this exterior of strength, that all in combination, there was a lot, the isolation, the separation, all of that combined. So please don't get distracted by thinking one thing, because it's not. She said, he is the main reason behind my blog topic and will continue to be the driving force behind everything that I do in life. What did I tell you guys? Let's read that again. I'm sorry, we're going to have to kind of break these down because we're trying to tap into Neena's thoughts and Neena, the pain she's going through. And the only way we can do that is through her words. This young lady was going through a lot of pain, and you will not be able to see it on any of her videos on the TV station or anything like that. You have to look at her words, and you have to look inside of the words to navigate and figure out what she was feeling. She said, he is the main reason behind my blog topic and will continue, that word continue is very pivotal, to be the driving force. Driving force? What is a driving force? A driving force is something that has control and it can navigate every decision that you make. So for her to use those two words together, driving force, this means that Jordan was the central kind of force in her life that navigated her decision making, her thought process, her relationships, her everything. And she even uses that. She says, well, continue is a key word she uses, driving force. Jordan will continue to be the driving force behind everything. everything that I do in life. That you have to understand how significant that is, because it was one of the tormenting things that led down this path, because she was tortured on a daily basis. Driving force continued to be the driving force behind everything I do in life. Everything I do. Imagine that. From waking up in the morning to brushing your teeth, washing your face, going to work, deciding what coffee shop to go to, deciding where to move, deciding what career to take on. He was the driving force behind every decision she made in her life. Imagine the life of torture Neena went through. That was a painful life she experienced. Him to be the driving force behind everything in her life means that she truly was unable to ever fully move past the great loss that she experienced. The love of her life, the love of someone's life, that's your entire existence. Of my life? And then that person continues to be the driving force behind everything that your decisions you make. That's huge, guys. And then you take that and you take all those feelings and you put it in a relationship with someone else. There's no comparison. There is no comparison. It doesn't matter who the new person is. They can't compare to the love of the life, who is the driving force behind everything that she does in her life. And that's why it's important we go over these words, because people will be distracted by, oh, she was engaged. That doesn't mean anything, guys. It's a distraction. Engagement doesn't mean anything. I don't think that new boyfriend could compare to the love and the gravity of love, this driving force behind every decision she made in her life, which was Jordan. I don't think so, guys. That's just my opinion. So she felt alone. Even when she's in a relationship, you can feel alone in a relationship when you're going through emotional turmoil and pain. Oh man, imagine too, she would go down to his grave and visit him. She couldn't do that anymore because she's all the way in Wisconsin. She can't see the love of her life. She can't visit his grave site. She can't have those spiritual moments and connections with him right at where he is. That's another trying pain. She said, when I am sad about his passing means it's something that happens often. When I am sad about his passing, those are feelings of pain that she feels often throughout her life. It's a norm in her life. It's a normality in her life. That's why she uses those words. When I am very sad about his passing, and I missed that word, very, very sad. She's giving you the words of what she's been going through. People gloss over these things and they don't see the gravity of what people go through because they just read it and don't really sit down and really understand what was in her mind at the time that she wrote this. And she's telling you this is something she's felt throughout her life, and the very person who is the driving force behind everything in her life is now gone, and she's thousands of miles away from even his gravesite and other things, and even his mom, who may have had that emotional comfort that could kind of help her through those times because they both can share the loss of Jordan. All that's gone. She's in Wisconsin now. And she feels alone because she can't share that with her fiance. She can't tell her fiance, hey, I'm missing the love of my life right now. I mean, imagine her telling her fiance that. He's like, well, then what am I? If he's the love of your life, what am I? I can't possibly compare. So what does she have to do? She has to bottle that all up inside and keep it within her. That is the worst thing to go through, when you cannot share and have an outlet with the person that you feel that you're going to marry about something you're battling, because you don't want to hurt that person. So you have to hold it in. That makes the pain even worse. Even worse. So let's read that again. She said, when I am very sad about his passing, I prefer to be alone. What did I tell you guys? All the stuff that I talked about the hour ago was stuff I was just channeling from what I felt in the spirit. I haven't read this yet. And I'm telling you exactly what I felt in my spirit, or what she does is she prefers to deal with it alone. And she's telling us in the blog, let's read that again. When I am very sad about his passing, and this happens quite often in her life. And it's even worse because this job is just amplifying it with all these stories that bring up memories. And she can't see. The thing is, with the Children's Cancer Society, if we go back up to the blog here, sorry, we're going to have to take our time to really go through this, guys, because we have to go through this because there's people out there who need to be able to hear this story so it can help them. But here she says, when, the nights that Jordan and I would volunteer, she'd come here, but she said sometimes she wouldn't volunteer at the Children's Cancer Center, right? When it would be too much for her. So she would stop because it would bring up too much pain. And then she finally came back and it was making her happy again, right? But for the cancer center, she could choose to volunteer or not. She didn't have to go if she didn't want to. If she was feeling those terrible nights, or, being with those kids would bring up memories of Jordan. She could choose to just stop volunteering, come back whenever she wants. But as a news anchor, this is her job. She's going to tell you in an interview. She'll tell you exactly what I mean. But as a news anchor, this is her job. She doesn't get a choice. She has to keep coming to work. She can't tell her boss, I don't want to cover this cancer story, sir. This is just too much for me. They're like, well, nope, sorry, ma'am. You got to keep working. Or, I don't want to cover this murder story. This is just, can I take a break for the rest of the week and not cover any of the horrific stories? Can I just cover the positive ones? And you guys already know on the news, there's like 1% positive and everything else is negative. Do you think she can do that at her news anchor job? No, she doesn't get a choice. And then she tells you here. So this sentence here, right here, before we haven't even got past this part, but here, this is telling you the way she copes with the times that she's feeling depression and pain, agony, all those horrible, terrible, heartbreaking, gut-wrenching pain of losing Jordan and the other assortment of losses and things that she's dealing with, because there's an assortment of things she's dealing with, problem with the job and everything else. She prefers to be alone. That is the worst position to be in when you're going through depression, is being alone. It is the worst. And it's the worst when you don't have God, because you're alone with your thoughts and you have the enemy in there. All you have is your thoughts and the pain and the agony. And then you have the enemy tormenting your mind. And he's telling you all these things, and he's telling you how, there's no hope out of this. There's no way out of this. The only thing you can get out of this is to stop thinking this pain. The only way you're going to stop crying at night and feeling depression is just end it all. And that's when you're going to find rest and peace. That's what he says. And so she's instead of finding the way to cope with it through counseling, friendships, prayer, reading the word of God, coming to God, she prefers to be all alone with those tormenting thoughts, with the enemy tormenting her, and no way to cope out of it. That is the worst way to be. And the sad part is, guys, she told us this back in 2017 when he died. It was only 13 months after he died. That was a year, 2018, sorry. That was a year after he passed away. So imagine she went on throughout her life after 2017 when he died, and she would deal with pain and agony and depression all alone when she is very sad about his passing. But this also could go to apply to other things that she was sad about, like her job and other stuff like that, and being away from home and all stuff like that. All of it. Imagine when she's very sad, she prefers to be alone. That's how she copes, alone, where the enemy can torment her day in and day night, tormenting her mind, And there's really, when you're alone, there's really no way to truly, really get over that pain. No way. All it does is make it worse. I mean, unless you have God and you're crying out to God and you're having him come in and intervene and help you cope through it. If you don't have that component and you're all alone with those thoughts and the enemy tormenting you day in and day out, he will push you towards self-conclusion. And so she's thinking doing it alone is the way out. And so she thought, okay, I was able to do it alone 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. Eventually it will come to a time where you will no longer be able to do it all alone. You may be able to get through it 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, but there's going to come a time where it's going to pile up so much. And if you don't have the tools, you don't have God, you don't have the coping mechanisms, the enemy will drive. He drove Neena to a point of self-conclusion. So let's read that again because this is powerful words. And we are so blessed that she had this blog and she shared these words with us. She said, when I am very sad about his passing, I prefer to be alone. And sometimes, let's go back. I don't want to gloss over that. When I am very sad about his passing, I prefer to be alone. Big no-no. That's a huge red flag. A huge red flag. And if people are not familiar with the indicators, they'll just gloss over that alone part and keep reading and just ignore it and think, oh yeah, I like to be alone. No, that's what the enemy wants. He wants you to be alone. He doesn't want you to have, therapy, friends, family, God, prayer, all that. He doesn't want you to have that. He wants you to be alone. He's trying to get you to be alone. He's trying to isolate you so that he can torment you with those thoughts and keep repeatedly tormenting you until it becomes too much. And then he keeps telling you, you need to do it. Just do it. Just do it. Just end it all. And then you'll find rest and peace. That's what he'll say. Or he'll use whatever words. So let's go back to that. She says, when I am very sad about his passing, I prefer to be alone. Very scary word. And she said, I sometimes go visit his grave at the cemetery. And sometimes go visit his grave at the cemetery. So that's one of her ways that she coped. Imagine, guys, his cemetery where he is buried is in Florida. She's all the way in Wisconsin. So she doesn't get to go visit his grave. That's one of her coping mechanisms she uses, when she goes through these times. She has been in Wisconsin since 2019. So there's been 3 years. I mean, of course she goes to visit her family, on holidays or whatever, okay? But I mean, she can't just conveniently get up if she covers a story or whatever. Those emotions come back because they were very often she had to experience those emotions because, as I mentioned, she says in her very words that he was the driving force behind everything that she does in life. So, I mean, if she goes down to the coffee shop or if she goes for a certain lunch, memories of her Jordan come back in her mind because he's the driving force that pretty much navigated every part of her life. So she's constantly having to rethink about that pain and feel those very sad emotions. And then so all she has left is being alone. She doesn't get to go to his gravesite where she kind of had that time where she could talk to him and be with him. Because she says she prefers to be alone, which is a big no-no. But she sometimes goes to visit his gravesite at the cemetery, which she can no longer do conveniently. If she wants to go visit his gravesite, she has to schedule a flight. She has to take time off work. She has to fly back home. She can't just, 8 o'clock at night, she's feeling depression and feeling very sad. She can't just get up like she used to, drive over to the cemetery and talk to him. She can't do that anymore. Not conveniently, at least. So let's go back to that. She says, sometimes I go visit his grave at the cemetery and talk to him. Well, she can't do that conveniently anymore. That was taken away from her because she's all the way in Wisconsin. As if he's sitting right there next to me. She doesn't get to do that anymore, guys. So all she has left is to be at home alone, crying in her pillow, and unable to go visit him and talk to him as if he's right there next to her. He's thousands and thousands of miles away. Right? These words, guys, are so powerful. That's why I got to keep going back to them, guys, because you guys got to really understand how powerful these words are, because she is speaking, okay? It may have been many years ago, but these are the same feelings that she felt up until the day she gave her life up. They didn't change. That's why they're so powerful, okay? She says, again, I prefer to be alone. Big no-no. Sometimes go visit his gravesite at the cemetery, which she can't do anymore. We already know that. She can't unless she has to book a flight and take off work, and all this. These hurdles are in the way. There's so many hurdles in the way for her to be able to talk to him as if she's sitting as he's sitting right there next to her. And she says, sounds weird to those who cannot relate. Okay? Remember we talked about earlier that I said that she felt like she was alone, like, because she didn't feel people around her could really relate to the gravity of loss she felt. Losing the love of her life, someone who was the driving force behind everything that she did in her life. That was a huge loss to her. And so she felt completely alone. She didn't feel anyone around her truly understand the gravity of pain she felt. So because this trauma was something that she felt no one around her could understand, maybe her fiance, co-workers, people around, they couldn't truly identify with that pain. It was only a trauma that her and Jordan shared alone, right? So the way that she dealt with it was alone, going to that cemetery, because the one person that shared that trauma was Jordan. And so she could be next to him at his gravesite as if he was right there next to her. And she could talk to the one person that she felt understood the pain that she was feeling. But she didn't have that anymore. So the only thing she had left in Wisconsin was being alone, isolating herself from her fiance, from her coworkers, from her sister, from her friends, all alone, where the enemy could now start attacking her mind because she blocked out any coping mechanism because she felt no one could understand except Jordan, who now is thousands of miles away because she can't be with him. This is how traumatic and painful Neena felt, you guys, day in and day out. There may have been some good days where she could block out the memories, but many, many days she couldn't. And so she would have to take that pain home alone, like she always does. That's the way she deals with those times when she's very sad, because she feels nobody understands. And she's telling you in her words, she's saying, sounds weird to those who cannot relate, but to those reading who have loved ones in heaven can most definitely relate. But even those people, I wonder, like, if she wondered the gravity of what Jordan truly was to her. Again, it was a trauma that only her and Jordan shared. And his mother. So she could go to his parents as well. But again, his parents are not in Wisconsin. She can't just go drive by Jordan's parents' house or his mom's house and have a nice day of crying. Maybe she could have done that in Florida. And she, you know, when she had those times, she probably dropped by his mom's house and like, look, this is too much. I miss him. And his mom gets it. She gets it because she's feeling that same pain. Wisconsin doesn't have those resources there. So what does she do? She blocks everyone out. And now all she's left with is being alone with her thoughts. And then every day waking up, pretending to wear this mask of bubbly, happy, joyful Neena, but in reality, it's all a facade. Because when she goes back at home at night, and she's probably covered some story that elicits pain and agony, and then she starts thinking about her loss because maybe she interviewed that mother who lost her son. And the woman's crying and in agony of losing her son. It doesn't matter how the son was lost. It could be any other way. But just interviewing that person and seeing the trauma of the loss could elicit pain and those very traumatic feelings of losing Jordan come back up again. And now what does she do? She prefers to be alone. Fiance can't help her. In her mind, this is her mind. Counselor can't help her, in her mind. So she blocks everybody else. She doesn't want to get the help. Because remember, her sister said she had all the resources anyone could ask for. She had it all there, but she didn't want it. She preferred to be alone, which is what the enemy puts in your mind to get you isolated. He wants you to be isolated because that's where he can really torment the mind, wearing and tearing and stripping away the mind to cause depression, pain, hurt, and agony, and hopelessness. Hopelessness is one of the key words that drive people to self-conclusion. And the source of hope is God. The true source of hope is God. And when you block him out, because I know she was angry at him too. She was angry at, whether she believed in God, universe, whatever she believed in, spiritual world, she was angry at that spirit, whatever she believed. She was angry. So she blocked that out, period. She felt it was the spirit part's fault. I can't speak on her faith because I don't know exactly what was her faith or if she had faith. But I know she would have blamed that because she talked about, she questioned why. What was the reason? I questioned, these things. She said below, okay, she says here, below is a picture that I took while sitting by his headstone. And there's his headstone with the flowers. But see, her going to his gravesite was really kind of a sense of comfort for her because she felt right there with him. It was very comforting. It was like she was with Jordan all over again, and she could talk to him about missing him and the pain and, the hurt. And it put a small little Band-Aid on the agony that she felt. So for a little while, she'd feel better again. And then she'd go back and feel those very sad days again. And then she'd prefer to be alone and go back to the gravesite. But now she can't do that. She's all alone with her thoughts. Now let's look at another part. She says, his mom and I went through all of his clothes a few months after he passed. So she had his mom there. That's another coping mechanism that really helped her because the mom got it. She understood exactly what Neena was going through. She understood because she was going through the same pain. So it was a sense of comfort to be with his mom. It was like she felt at home because she could tell Jordan's mom all the pain she was feeling, and they could comfort each other. They could hug each other, talk about the memories, cry it out. But she couldn't do that anymore because where is she? She's all the way in Wisconsin, and the mother's gone. The mother's in Florida. So you see how dramatic this move was? She acted as though she liked it. She said she was going to stay, but that's the same thing Chesley did. And we know what happened to Chesley. Chesley had previously attempted a self-conclusion before, and her family was there in North Carolina. They helped her through it. She had her support system there. She could go drive to her mom's house anytime she's having a crisis. But when she was in New York, she didn't have any of those resources there. She didn't have her mom there. And her mom was a very strong source of her coping mechanism. But she didn't have any of those resources anymore. And she chose, just like Neena, to stay in an area that only amplified and made the trauma and the coping ability tougher and more difficult for these two individuals who truly needed their support systems there. Like Jordan's mom. She said, his mom and I went through all of his clothes a few months after he passed. She gave me a lot of his favorites. See, so his mom got her. She understood. She was able to give, and they shared these very, very reassuring moments where his mother gave her sentimental things that was very special to Neena to help Neena through those times. But imagine now she doesn't have that resource. The sweatpants that I have on in the picture were his favorite. So she even wore his sweatpants. He was planning on attending the University of Florida before his cancer returned for the third and final time. before taking his life. So this has got to be the worst thing. This young lady was with this young boy for 4 years, right? And throughout those years, they had to experience these times of this. It was like a roller coaster, because there would be these up times where the cancer had gone away and they thought, oh, he beat the cancer. Yay, let's go ahead and plan our life. And then there was this downhill trauma time where the cancer returned. Okay, and so now they're trying to battle this and seeing the love of her life suffer, and she has no ability to help him through this. It's the worst thing ever to feel powerless, to be able to help someone you love, and you have to watch this person suffer. And then there's this roller coaster of it going back up again. Oh, the cancer went away. Yay, hallelujah, he's gonna live. And then another drive down, the cancer comes back. She had to deal with this 3 times. And then the final time, it takes his life. It was horrific for all of them, who all was going through this trauma, and especially Jordan. Of course, he was the one that was suffering through the cancer. But these false senses of hope where the cancer would go away and then it would come back and go away and then come back and go away and come back, or go dormant and come back and go dormant and come back for the 3rd and final time, it just takes his life. That is horrific. And Neena never got over it. And she would go through these phases of just being very, very, very depressed. And different circumstances in her life would only amplify it, from volunteering at the Children's Cancer Center. But she had control over that. She can choose to volunteer or not. To working at the news station, where she had to cover very traumatic stories, to moving away from her support system, even from the cemetery that she could go to get the comfort, moving away from these very important coping resources that she had, where she was all the way away from them. And even though she made that drastic decision to stay, it probably wasn't a good decision for her health overall. Same drastic decision that Chesley Chris made. As you can see, there's correlations, and as you start understanding the different stories, you'll see some of the similarities that will help you understand the different pains that a lot of these souls go through, and hopefully it can help you or someone else to not make that decision. So here's a picture of Jordan, but let's go over some of the words. She says, earlier today at the gravesite of my boyfriend, Jordan Alexander Harris, that was his name. She said, I dream, hope, and pray every single day that there will soon come a day when the cure to childhood cancers is released, because no one should have to feel the pain I endure on a daily basis. Do you guys see that? It's so sad, because the sister and everyone is confused, and in reality, Neena told everybody back in 2018 when she wrote the blog of what she was going through. But I don't think anybody took the time to read it. Or if they did, they just kind of glossed over it, like we all do. But she just told you guys. This is just, she told you. She has to feel the pain every single day. So this is a pain that Neena never ever escaped. Every day from the time she woke up to the time she went to sleep at night. Remember, you have to understand how these words all connect. She said that Jordan Harris was the driving force and continue to be the driving force behind everything she does in life. So what does that mean? From the point that she wakes up in the morning, gets dressed, takes breakfast, goes to work, he is the driving force behind everything. So she thinks about this person every day to dictate her decision making. He is the love of her life. So what does that do to the mind and to the emotions? It causes pain to endure on a daily basis. Neena lived a tormenting life after Jordan died. Every day, she had to feel pain every day. And she coped with that pain. What does she say she does? When she feels very sad, she's alone. And now she doesn't get to go to the cemetery where Jordan is. She is not near the mother of Jordan. She is all alone with those painful thoughts on a daily basis, and she's not going to let in the new guy. I'm sorry, he's not the love of her life. Jordan was. Okay, so there was a wall up that he didn't get to know. It's sad because I don't think the fiance truly ever knew what she was going through, because she was, wearing that smile that she wore on TV with him. So he's probably surprised too and doesn't understand what happened, because yeah, she shared with him that she lost her childhood boyfriend and stuff, but she didn't really tell him the pain that she had to feel, and she was enduring and she was suffering every single day. That is a lot for one person who's trying to cope with it all by themselves. And she told us how she copes, being alone, which is the worst way to cope with pain. These are all indicators for someone who is prone to self-conclude. She gave us all the signs back in 2018. That was the time where someone needed to give her an intervention right here, or back up in this blog right here when they saw the blog, because they should have got her into counseling, got her, helping her to cope with the emotions of the loss, because coping with a grief of this magnitude by yourself, it's impossible. There's no way. This was a predictor of leading down a road of self-conclusion, because she was trying to cope with something beyond her capabilities by herself and isolating herself. And then the enemy's coming in and tormenting, especially, and this is the worst. It's the worst late in the midnight hour. Remember that song? It's the worst when you're all alone with those thoughts and the enemy is tormenting. And she said on a daily basis. I didn't know it was a daily basis. I'm thinking maybe she had some good days in there. No, she said no one should have to feel. We got to read this together, guys, because I don't want y'all to think I'm making stuff up. No one should have to feel the pain I endure on a daily basis. That is the worst pain that anyone can feel on a daily. There's no way. Imagine on a daily basis, you wake up and go to bed feeling pain. It's a tormenting life. Neena lived a very depressing life after Jordan died. And she tried to cover it up with a news anchor job, with all these successes, all the advancements in her career, with a smile, with a fiance, but none of it could help her get through the pain late at night when she tried to cope with it all by herself. She says, also, no mother should only spend 18 short years with their son or daughter because a disease is robbing their children from a bright future ahead of them. I do not have anything wrong with finding cure to cancers more common in adults, but have lived through a child battling cancer. She had to live through a child, which is Jordan, battling cancer. And she was a child herself. She was a child herself helping another child battle cancer. And the tormenting thing of these false hopes of the cancer going dormant and thinking, oh, yay, it's over. And then they're coming back. That is just, it's the worst trauma ever. Because it's this false sense of hope, like, yay, you're going to live. You got this. And then now let's continue to plan our life together. And then all of a sudden they get that call again. Oh, it's back. The cancer's back. And they had to go through that 3 different times. And she had to live through that, as she's saying. That is so traumatic. There is no way this young girl who dealt with this as a person in high school was able to ever move past that. She had to endure that pain every day. And it made it worse because the job didn't really help covering all these traumatic stories. So it's just her daily life was trauma after trauma after trauma. She never really found peace after Jordan died. She never found it. And then she felt alone, trapped in the pain and the agony and the torment every day. And then the enemy told her the only way she would find rest and peace was to end it all. Instead of getting help, instead of reaching out to someone, trying to find resources, calling out to God, he isolated her all alone and told her the only way out is to end it all. And he lied to her. And she said, in realizing that they have a whole journey of life ahead of them and have very, very little funding, I become irritated. So I think Jordan also his family battled with finances to try to afford to pay for the medical treatment. And she had to witness all of this. So it was very, very emotional for her throughout her childhood, her high school years. You know, while in high school, people were enjoying their proms and, you know, all these monumental moments. She didn't get to experience that because she was so focused on trying to help her, the love of her life, the driving force behind everything in her life, make it through another day. She grew up way, way premature than other kids. She said, I hope my sweet Jordan is having a great day in heaven and continues to show the perfect smile up there like he always carried on his face while here on earth. Let's look at some pictures of Jordan and her. There's a picture of her, Jordan and I enjoying each other's company at Clearwater's Beach in the summer of 2012. So they had a long childhood life together. Their love was just deep. I mean, as kids, this was, you know, her childhood love. They experienced so much together. That is so horrific for someone to lose someone so special. And then there she is. This was Christmas 2013. She enjoyed holidays with him at the shop of Winegrass in Tampa, Florida. So it's just so much for someone so young to experience love for the first time and it to be taken from you. And it's just traumatic and you don't know how to get through it. And that's what Neena dealt with every day, even all the way up to 27 years old, you guys. She never got over it. She had to feel pain like this every day. It's so sad. So let's read this one. I'll try not to interrupt, guys, but it's just so much nuggets in here. It's hard not to. She said, friends don't let friends relay. Hey, bloggers. So for the past 7 years, I have been an active participant in the American Cancer Society's Relay for Life. Once my boyfriend became diagnosed with brain cancer, his mother and I did a bunch of research. And one of the first surprising facts we came across was that childhood cancers get less than 3% of the total funds raised from Relay for Life. Wow, so she's saying that this organization doesn't really give much financial support to individuals with that are children. She said, this is very disappointing to me as a girlfriend who is seeing firsthand, remember I told you she has to witness this, the terrible disease taking the life of an innocent child with a whole life ahead of him. So she's telling you, she had to see firsthand this brain cancer slowly stripping the life away of her boyfriend, someone she loved so much. She had to see that on a daily basis for many, a long period of time. I don't know if this was through about many years, because it appeared to be throughout many years, because it was the cancer would, reactivate and then it would basically go dormant. And it did it 3 times. So I'm thinking it had to have been throughout a couple of years of her having to go through this. That's a very long, trying, high school years. It's horrific. And you guys already know that high school can truly play a pivotal role in someone's life. Even in adulthood, they kind of think back to different experiences in high school. It's a memorable moment in your life. She said, many people encourage this community event that takes place all around the world. Although those of the childhood cancer world strongly discourage it, since it is not beneficial to the future of our world, the kids. The idea of the event is to stay up all night and walk around the track for 24 hours. There are teams set up in the football fields that are surrounded by the track, and each time is required to hold a fundraiser. The morning following relay, the funds are turned into the managers, and then across the world, the money is just distributed amongst the different cancers around the world. Now, I still attend the Relay for Life event at the University of South Florida in memory of my boyfriend, Jordan. But I do not go all out and raise a ton of money like I used to prior to learning about the underfunding for childhood cancers. So, sorry to come off as discouraging, although I feel like more people need to realize the significance, and maybe one day the right person will see the upset people and more funds raised from the Relay for Life will go towards finding a cure for childhood cancers. And that is something that was very pivotal to her because, again, she lost the love of her life. And let's see if I can find something important in here. I don't know if I want to go through all these. So, this is somebody that she was helping. This young guy, this young cute kid here, founder of Alexander's Lemonade Stand. This is Alexandra, is a young lady here. Alexandra Scott, she passed away also from cancer, a neuroblastoma is what she passed away from. And this was a young lady that Neena also helped, and she talked about in this blog. And we'll just briefly go over it, guys, because we don't want to go over it too much. I don't think we need to, but she said this foundation, she said, hey bloggers, it seems fitting with a blog about kids with cancer to find some great organizations that focus on raising money to find a cure for pediatric cancer. Most focus on breast cancer or other well-known cancers that adults are diagnosed, but Alex Lemonade Stand focuses on just kids with cancer, which is again something that Neena is very passionate about because she lost the love of her life, who was a kid who died of brain cancer. This foundation was started by a 4-year-old girl who had dreams set on finding a cure for cancer. Alexandra Scott battled a common childhood cancer and lost her battle at the age of 8. Alex and her older brother would set up lemonade stands each year and raise up to $2,000 at each stand. Each year, the foundation would gain more and more publicity and is recognized as one of the most successful foundations, raising more than $80 million up to date that are benefiting research funds. And the young girl, she has since passed away, which is sad. And she did a lot of great things. This is Devon and Lauren Hill after they meet, and Hill receives jerseys from Still. So this is another cool thing that she's talking about regarding her philanthropic work with cancer patients. Let's read a little bit about this. This is about her playing on the basketball team. So maybe we can get some information about this. USF's women's basketball in the Virgin Islands. Remember, she played for the USF women's basketball team. Hey bloggers, I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Rather than a story of pediatric cancer, I have a more positive topic this week. Our USF women's basketball team was invited to the Paradise Jam in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands over Thanksgiving break, where we played against the University of Illinois, Oklahoma, and Kentucky. When we touched down on the island, we were notified that our transportation for the week would be trolleys that would make you feel like you are on a safari. This trip was unlike any other business trip that the South Florida Lady Bulls endure during the regular season. While away from the court, there were many interesting things that we discovered throughout the trip, and being that I was out of town for the photo blog assignment, this was my only option. Each team in the tournament had the opportunity to have an amazing view of the harbor, as well as team trip out to the Turtle Cove Reef to take a dip in the ocean and snorkel around to see animals such as turtles, fish, and starfish. The games took place on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, usually meant at 9 p.m. and usually meant getting sleep around 1 a.m. So she didn't really get much sleep. So again, she had a very kind of long, tedious kind of basketball career when she was a basketball player, and that required her to be up late nights and travel a lot. So again, that was another kind of wear and tear on her. The Lady Bulls knocked off Oklahoma, Illinois, and lost in the championship game to number 1 ranked to the number 8 ranked Kentucky. While no one was quite ready to return back to Tampa, it was time to get home and ready for upcoming exams. I hope that everyone enjoys the new photos from St. Thomas. So, what Nina would do is she would try to distract herself. So when she lost Jordan, she created this blog as a way to help her cope, kind of get her mind off of the pain. She joined the Child's Cancer Society and a lot of organizations to raise money for childhood cancers. She was on the basketball team and put a lot of effort and drive and determination into that. And then she also buried herself into her exams and her career. So she put all these external things to kind of distract her from the underlying pain that she felt on a daily basis. And all these different distractions, really, at the end of the day, when she was home alone all by herself, she had to eventually deal with the pain that she was dealing with on a daily basis all by herself, which became unbearable. She just couldn't take it anymore. And so I can keep going on to this and on, but I am not. I'm going to just read this introduction and then we'll go into her Twitter, because there's only one key thing that there's kind of a couple things I want to kind of hint in there on the Twitter to kind of talk about, to show some of the stuff she had been going through. But let's read the introduction, because I think this is good to kind of hear her overview of everything. She says, "Hi, my name is Neena Pacholke, and I am a sophomore planning to major in mass communications with a focus on telecommunications." So she was in college by then. "I chose to take the telecommunications route because it fits best with my job." And so this was very fresh. So when she lost Jordan, she was a senior in high school. They were on their way. They both were planning to go to USF. And so when she graduated a year later, she's now in school at college. And so she used college, like I said, all those different things that she was doing in college to distract. And she created this blog as another way to distract. So that's kind of what was going on throughout her life after Jordan died. She said, "I chose to take the telecommunications route because it fits best with my dream job. I have aspirations of one day becoming a sports analyst working for ESPN." So that was her ultimate dream. So you notice her dream was to become a sports analyst, but in order to get there, she has to gain all this experience first. So she has to do the things, the dirty work, the things that she doesn't really want to do, but she has to get the experience to get to her ultimate dream job, which is what? Working for the sports analyst. But she can't just skip all the steps to get there. So she has to be a news anchor first. And what does news anchors go through? They go through a lot of trauma. This story really helps highlight the emotional torment and wear and tear of news anchors who have to cover some of the most traumatic stories out there in the country, because you already know the news focuses on trauma, controversy, and negativity, because that's the only way to draw in their viewers. And so a lot of these news anchors have to deal with this trauma. They have to witness very horrific graphic scenes, different things, and then they got to take that pain home. And imagine someone who already has a background of pain and trauma that they're dealing with from helping someone throughout their pretty much early years of their life in high school get through cancer, and they haven't even gotten over that trauma. And now they have to add on trying to get to their dream job, working this very trying and tough job where they're seeing all this trauma every day on the job, and they don't have a choice. They have to keep experiencing it just to get to that ultimate job of being a sports analyst. Can you imagine what she was going through? It was too unbearable. And she was away from her family, away from Jordan, away from people that she would lean upon to cope, which was was his mother. She's away from all that now. She's in Wisconsin at this job that she has to sustain because she has to work her way up the ladder of success. That is what led to her ending her life. All those different factors that we talked about. She says, "I've decided to blog about recent news in childhood cancer. The main reasons that I have chosen the topic is because I am directly affected from it. My boyfriend passed away from cancer, and it needs to become more well known so that more funding can go into funding cure for cancer funding cure for kids with cancer, for the simple reason that kids are the future of our country. And so she had to see Jordan. And the reason why did this mean so much to her? You have to understand, why does people do things? Because there's something in their background for why they feel that way. And the reason why she has focused so much on funding for children with cancer is because Jordan's family struggled with trying to pay for cancer treatment. And how did she know that? Because Jordan would come to her and talk to her about it. You know, he's like, I got to get this treatment, and my parents are struggling with trying to find the money to get the funding. And so she had to see him stressed, in tears, the family, everybody coping and struggling to try to find ways to fund, Jordan's treatment. And that put a lot of pressure and pain on Jordan, which put pressure and pain on Neena, because when you love someone and you see someone in agony and pain, you take on that person's pain. And so because she experienced that with Jordan, it became a driving force into her to find a way to change it for other people. And that's why she created this blog, because she wanted to make a change in an area that truly affected someone that she loved more than anyone past her family, after her family. The love of her life, the driving force behind everything in her life, Jordan. I am not one to take part in traditional blogging, nor am I one to embrace it. Traditional blogging is very biased and selfish, in my opinion. People can just gather their thoughts on a topic and inform the internet about their own opinion on the topic, hoping for a response. While I do not support traditional blogging, I do have a Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. See, she has all those outlets. This modern blogging thing is just, it's not really good. It's not really good because it creates this facade that's not real. And so she said, I do have a Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, which are modern ways of blogging. I use these types of blogs to communicate with others, as well as share interesting news updates that my close friends and family may want to know about me. Again, it's always going to be the positive stuff. She's not going to share all the pain that she deals with alone, because she talked to us about how she copes all alone. She doesn't go to others when she's going through things. So I wanted to share the blog with you guys because this is allowing us to go into her mind to figure out her coping, what pain she had been experiencing, and it's a deep core into a lot of the reasons that led up to her trauma and her ending her life. Okay, so let's go to her Twitter, because I'm trying to find her Twitter. I don't think this is it. I'm going to find that Twitter. Here it is. I wanted to go on her Twitter because when I was going through her Twitter, there was a key retweet there was a comment that she retweeted that really pricked my heart. I was like, oh, I knew exactly what she was trying to say. Because people retweet stuff that affect them. They either identify with it, they agree with it, they've had experience with it. It's something that they probably also adopt as their own belief. Neena, on August 18th, this is very important, you guys, because she was depressed at this time too. It all led up to this moment. August 18th, this is a very pivotal post that she posts that truly, when I saw this, all the alarm bells went off, and I was like, I gotta show my viewers this. Okay, August 18th, guys, that was this year. She retweeted a comment from John Gordon, and it says, we are not positive because life is easy. We are positive because life can be hard. What I gathered from that sentence, a lot of people, this is how Neena carried herself throughout her life. She carried this fake facade of a smile and happiness and positivity on the news, on these different news shows. And you'll hear people when they talk about her, they say, oh, she was so happy. She was so bubbly, and so she lit up the whole room when she walked in. They will tell you that. She was telling people that it was all a facade. She's saying, I wasn't really, I'm not being bubbly and happy because my life is all great and dandy like everybody thinks. Everybody thinks because I'm smiling and happy and bubbly that my life is perfect. And that's not true. This is how she was feeling on the 18th. So you have to understand the depression she was really feeling, because she was getting tired of carrying this mask around. She was getting tired of pretending that she was happy when she really wasn't, that every day she was feeling this pain on a daily basis, and she was carrying it all alone, and she felt all by herself, and she felt no way out except for what the enemy lied to her and told her to do. That's why this sentence really came out to me, because she said, we are not positive because life is easy. So just because I'm smiling on TV and I'm showing this bubbly external facade, I'm not doing that because my life is perfect like you think it is. You think that I have everything that I want in life. You think that I have this perfect life because I have this fiance, or I have this wonderful career, or I'm the perfect looking girl, or I've made it to a lot of advancements in my job. And I'm not even at my dream job yet, but I'm still having to be forced into this job because I have to be able to have the experience to even navigate up the ladder of success to become that sports anchor that I dream. So I have to go through these trying times. You think my life is perfect because I smile. No, it's a facade. I'm only smiling because I'm covering up the fact that my life is hard. My life has been tormenting to me. I am covering up the reality of what I'm really feeling inside. That is what she was really trying to say when she retweeted this. That's what she's trying to say. And so she's now trying to speak to herself, give yourself and others grace. She's saying, you may think because someone is smiling and they're happy on the outside, you think their life is perfect. But no, they have to carry this smile and be extra dandy and bubbly to cover up the fact that they're suffering inside. So because you don't understand that, just even though you may think someone's happy, try to give people grace. Try to be kind to people. Even when you may think that they're happy on the outside, they may not really be happy on the inside. So give people grace, she's telling people. Speak life and encourage others. So be nice to people, even if you think their life is perfect, because you don't know what they're going through. Look for the good today. Remember your why. Believe the best is yet to come. She was saying this to speak to you guys, because she's saying, even though you may think people walk around with smiles and their life is perfect, you don't know what they're going through. It may not be reality. It may just be a facade of and that's what I'm going through, she's trying to say. So give people grace and be kind. I think that's a big takeaway from her life. But that was something that really spoke out to me when I saw that, because I really could tell here that she had been going through some trauma and it was becoming too much for her. And so she retweeted this because she really identified with it. But notice some of the stories that she retweets. Okay, this is where it becomes trauma. Imagine, these are the kind of stories that she has to talk about on her job. Neena retweets, August 12th, developing story. A Wausau teen is accused of shooting a man in the head after a dispute. Okay, so she has to cover stuff like this is an example. And they get sent photographs of different things. They get the details of some of the stuff they may not even share on the station. They have to see that stuff. So this is, as you look at these tweets, these are just examples of the stories that Neena has to cover being a news anchor. Exhibit A. This is just this month, you guys. Breaking. Neena retweets. The man convicted in a fatal cemetery shooting from 2019 will spend life behind bars without potential parole. Another shooting. But see, I'm only giving you the breaking parts. She has to go into the intricate details of these stories, and these stories can be very traumatizing. See, you and I, we can turn this off. I can close this laptop and I can choose to not watch the news for a good year or so and come back to blog if I want to. She can't do that. This is just examples. When I was seeing this, it's like, okay, these are good examples of what she has to cover. So then this is some fun things she gets to do. And I want to go over her interview. I'm going to probably skip over the rest of the stuff, guys, because I want to go over her interview. And this interview was very pivotal, guys. You guys need to listen to what she says because she's going to kind of give you a little small nuggets. It's not going to be a lot. You have to read into it. But let's play this interview. This interview is very important, okay? I might stop it in to kind of go over some of the key things that I feel you need to understand.
The thing that's different about a verbal vacation.
And then hopefully we'll be done, guys, because this story, we needed to break down some of the key issues in the story to help everyone understand what Neena had gone through, in my opinion. So Neena was being interviewed last year in October 2021-19. So this is only a couple months ago. She was a recipient of a 2016 Athena Leadership Award. And she was being interviewed. She was one of the finalists for this award. And so she had to go through this interview. And this interview kind of really drew out some key things to me that stood out to me. And so I will be stopping it so we can kind of talk about them.
In the Athena Young Professional Leadership Award. First of all, thanks for coming and hanging out at the station. So, like I said, my name is Neena Pacholke. I am the morning anchor here at News 9. So I've been here for coming up on 4.5 years now. Well, I have some questions for you, so bring it on.
So number one, she says she's been there for 4.5 years, away from Florida, away from home. That's a lot for a 7-year-old dealing with trauma.
Dive right in. Can you share an example of a time you brought another woman into a leadership position or another project or a cause? And what did you learn from that experience? Well, funny you asked that. Just in reflecting recently, there actually is a fellow coworker who is a woman, and not necessarily a project, but more so just kind of taking her under my wing and helping develop her to learn leadership roles in different aspects of the TV industry. So for a bit of a backstory, like I said, I've been here 4.5 years, and I started as a reporter, moved here straight from college, and I was just a little baby in the area, trying to find my way in adulthood. And so then quickly moved up into weekend, filling in on the weekends, and then now in the morning anchor role. And so anytime someone comes in.
Okay, so that was important. Did you hear the process of news anchors? There is a process. You kind of start with the more difficult labor job. I want to kind of go over that again, guys, because I think some people may have missed that. Listen deeply, closely to the process of how news anchors elevate up. And when you start out, you do kind of the dirty work. It's quote unquote dirty work. You go out into the field and you got to go and you do like the labor of interviewing at these very, tough scenes. And, you may be at the middle of a crash head-on collision and you're there with all the blood and guts and everything all on the street. And you have to go interview the law enforcement there, get pictures and shots, whatever it is. You got to do the, and a lot of news anchors, they don't like doing that work. It's the grimy work. But see, she has to do this. She has to force herself to go through this trauma to get and navigate her way up to her ultimate dream job. So it's kind of like being in a position you don't want to be in order to get to where you want to go. But I need you to listen closely to that again and kind of be able to understand in detail what this young lady had to go through. Because this is someone who dealt with trauma, childhood trauma of losing a loss, dealing with the ongoing agony of pain of losing someone close to her, watching them wither away in front of her, suffering through a childhood cancer, and that, that person struggling to even find finances to survive. And then you take that trauma and you move it over to Wisconsin, and now she's in a job where she has to experience trauma on the job every day, and she doesn't get a choice in the matter because that's the only way she is going to ever be able to reach her dream job. There's a lot. Now that you put it all together, you understand all of the trauma Neena had been battling in the enemy and how he was able to get into the mind because there was an open door to get in there now and torment this young lady because she coped with her trauma all by herself.
Weekend, filling in on the weekends, and then
Listen to
area, trying to find my way in adulthood, and so then quickly moved up into.
So look, trying to find my way in adulthood. She never even moved past being a child because she dealt with trauma as a child and pretty much throughout her high school years. Neena never really advanced mentally past that. So now she's in an adulthood, trying to figure out how it is to be adult all by herself, away from the love of her life, the person that is the driving force, and she's in this whole new state. Can you now see how much pressure this young lady was under? And if you even listen to the tone of her voice, she always tries to keep this exterior of strength. Her voice is very strong, very firm, very assertive. Her posture, kind of very strong and assertive external. She's doing that as a way of an outer shell of strength, when in reality, she's frail and weak and pain and very broken inside, very broken inside.
Trying to find my way in adulthood, and so then quickly moved up into weekend, filling in on the weekends, and then now in the morning anchor role. And so anytime someone comes and has a report.
So she quickly moved up to filling in weekends. Weekends is one of, again, it's the lower bottom of the barrel. Those are the people who are beginner anchors. They're trying to work their way up. Everybody does not like that job. And so she's talking about what she had to go through.
A lot of times in the TV industry, everyone wants to be on the anchor desk. That's the fun part, you know, not going out and talking and doing all the hard work. I mean, it's still hard being the anchor, but there's just a.
So did you hear her? She's told you. So everybody covets to be being at the table anchor, basically. The one that's on the screen, that's talking to the people out in the field. And she's saying everybody wants to do that job because that's kind of like the easy job. You get to be there and you just interview the people that go out and do all the very tough job of having to go out into the field and hear those horrific stories. A lot of them are horrific stories. But she's telling this. So let's go back to that really quickly. Just listen closely and then we'll move on.
The fun part, you know, not going out and talking and doing. Anytime someone comes in as a reporter, a lot of times in the TV industry, everyone wants to be on the anchor desk. That's the fun part, you know, not going out and talking and doing all the hard work. I mean, it's still hard being the anchor, but there's just a lot of it when it comes to being a reporter. So one of my coworkers wanted to learn a new aspect. She wanted to learn how to produce. She wanted to learn what it was like to be on the anchor desk and lead people and serve the community in that way. And so for the past 2.5, 3 weeks, we've been doing just that. And so for the first time yesterday, she got to anchor on the desk, and so it was just really cool to see. You know, for me, it seemed like I was just kind of like mentoring and just guiding her into the limelight, and she's just done an incredible job. So cool to see.
So imagine, this Wisconsin job was supposed to be a temporary job. Just like for Chesley, moving to New York and working as Miss USA for 2019, that was supposed to be a temporary job for both these young ladies that already had a lot of trauma in their life. And number one, they moved away from their support source. So that was already enough trauma, but they were supposed to be there temporarily. But both of them chose to stay. And the reason why, which was not a good thing, it was one of the turning points in their trauma. But Neena chose to stay here because as you heard her talk, the reason why I wanted you to hear that again, and I kept stopping it and talking to you about it, is because Neena had to work really hard to work her way up to become that station anchor. She had to go through the weekends. She had to go through the dark times, you know, that a lot of the anchors don't want to do. And she finally got promoted up to the table station anchor. And so when she got to that and she did all that work to get there, she was like, you know, I need to just stay here. I did all this work to get here. I might as well stay because this will help me move up to being a sports anchor. So that's why she decided to remain in Wisconsin, which was something that was the turning point for her. Had she gone back home, she would have had some more resources there that could have helped her get through it. But she chose because she put all this work into it, got promoted. That promotion is what caused her to want to stay because she was like, oh, well, if I move back, who knows if I'm going to have another opportunity like this to be a station anchor. I may end up having to start back at the bottom of the barrel in Florida. And I don't want to do that again. So I might as well, since I'm already promoted here, I might as well stay, which was not a good thing for her mental health. And all it did was further contribute to driving her down this alone, solo barrel of pain all by herself. Because although, yes, she had a fiance and people there who loved and adored her, and everybody loved her, as her sister said, those people, like she said, they couldn't really understand what she was going through. I mean, she talked a lot about it in her blog, that she deals with things alone. But at least in Florida, she could go to the cemetery site, have that interaction with Jordan there. She had, the mother that she could talk to. She had very close people, intricate people that could understand the pain that she was dealing with. But moving all the way to another state that people could not truly identify with this trauma, she had to deal with it all by herself, which is something she normally does, which was not a good thing for her mental health. And it was a way that it left a door open. It was a door opening for the enemy to come in, and he tormented her. And the painful thing about this is when you keep dealing with things alone for years and years and years, as we talked about half an hour ago, we talked about dealing with it for, you may have been able to do it the first year or the second year or the third year, but eventually there's going to become a point where it's going to become too much, and the enemy is going to keep pricking at the pain, and he's going to continue to do it to the point where the person's so tormented that they can no longer sustain. And that's why it's important to go to this interview, because you can hear the reason why she ultimately stayed in Wisconsin. She's going to say that she enjoyed it there, but that's not why she did it. She did it because she worked so hard to get up to this position where it's a coveted position that all news anchors try to get to, and she didn't want to have to feel like she probably would have to start all over again or end up trying to get some type of job in Florida. And who knows if they're not going to just start her as a TV station anchor. They're going to probably just make her start out back in the field again, and she's going to have to try to work her way up again.
Helping guide her. Yeah, mentorship is so important. Shifting gears a little bit, can you share an example of a time you advocated fiercely for yourself, another person, or a cause? Also a good question. I'm going to go back to high school for this one. So another backstory, I was dating a guy for a few years, and he actually had brain cancer. And it was, I went alongside him, and we fought together, and he did most of the fighting, but just supporting him. And so one way that I wanted to support him, he loved to wear hats, and he lost his hair, and so that was obviously very emotional and taxing for any teenage boy. That's very vulnerable, and so he loved to.
See, you hear her, she's talking about Jordan and how that process where he lost his hair, and it was very emotional and traumatic for him. And you notice she's a lot like Chesley. This is a traumatic story for Neena to talk about. Okay, she talks about it in her blog, how she experiences pain on a daily basis, but you notice the contradiction in her face. She's smiling as if she's not hurt. She's pretending to wear a mask. She's smiling, she's talking about it's just like this thing that she's overcome, but in reality, it's all a facade. She's not really over this pain. She is pretending as though she's overcome it, and this is something she dealt with in high school, and she's risen above it. But in reality, this is an ongoing trauma that she continues to cope with. But I just want you to look at her demeanor, because it's all a facade. It's pretending to look as though she's happy and jolly and showing this exterior face of happiness. But in reality, that is not a truth that she is truly feeling inside. It's very important. You have to understand that.
Wear snapbacks, even though I love them. And so I came up with a fundraiser to raise money for him and his family, and we created these grave bracelets. And so one day there were about 2,800 kids, I would say, in my high school, and we did a Snapback Against Cancer fundraiser. As we sent him off, he had just relapsed. The tumors had just come back, and so we were trying to come behind.
So notice how she's talking about how it relapsed, it came back, emotionally trauma. And she's still just kind of brushing it off as if it's just having a nice discussion. And that's not really how she felt. I guarantee you, after this interview, when she was home alone at night, she cried. She cried because she had to remember that trauma. This question brought up all those emotions again. And so at night, when she was all by herself, the pain came back. And the only way she knows how to cope with these type of traumas is to do it all alone. So I guarantee you, after this interview, even though she pretended on the camera that she was happy and strong and victorious, that's not what she felt.
And support him, and everyone wanted to support him. And so it's really cool something that I
See, still smiling. This and the thing is, it's so contradictory to the blog that we read. If we read those words, you could tell, you could even kind of extract the pain that Neena had been going through. But here, she's just smiling and jolly. But she's not. It's so disturbing to see that, because in my spirit, I know the pain that Neena is feeling. You could, I mean, the blog that she wrote tells us that she was battling every day. She said the pain that she has to feel on a daily basis. When you're in pain, are you smiling? No. I've never seen anybody in pain having a nice smile, talking and brushing it off. She talks about feeling pain every day. So the fact that she's smiling about it really is disturbing my spirit, because I know that when people carry these masks of happiness and facade, they're feeling even more of a gravity of a pain than they're really displaying. And so it's even more of a magnitude. And so what this did was it brought up and resurfaced pain in her that she had to now, all those emotions were all flooded in her after this interview. And so she had to go to work. She had to continue on with all these very traumatic stories. You've seen some of the Twitters, just examples of the stories she covers. And then she had to hold all that pain in and smile and talk to coworkers. And by the time she got home, she was emotionally exhausted. She was so exhausted. And she couldn't share this with anybody because she had to pretend like everything was okay. Do you see how painful this was for Neena?
Moving here. Let me just tell you that.
So let's go back to that question.
Moving here. Let me just tell you that.
So if you guys could hear the question was, can you give us an example of how you acted courageously? And she said, moving here. So she didn't really want to move to Wisconsin in the first place. And we'll hear why she didn't really want to move to Wisconsin. So this was another factor at play. There's a lot of factors, but one of the factors was moving away from home.
So everyone always laughs at me being out in the community, being in the public eye all the time. People are like, "You're from Florida. Why in the world would you move to Wisconsin?" And so back in 2017, right before I graduated, I had been in talks with my boss at the time, and we talked, and he had asked if I wanted to come up and visit Wausau, and I was like, I just don't. I mean, I'm a college kid. I'm about to graduate. I don't really have the finances for that. I don't know what that looks like. Yeah, I know mom and dad can help, but I'm from Tampa, Florida originally, which is a big city. And I kid you not, when I first heard about Central Wisconsin, I thought it was a four-way stop. I thought like Bible, grocery store, church, that in school, you know. And boy, was I wrong. And I just made a decision through prayer, through conversations, through a bunch of different things and processing. And I said, you know what, I'm just gonna go. Take the leap of faith, and if it's meant to be, it'll be. And it was the best decision I think I could have ever made. 4.5 years ago, it's so funny to think of like little Neena moving here, and now just really just taking the reins and making this place my home. Oftentimes, a lot of you will understand if you watch the news that this is a really revolving business, and especially in the starter market, people come here for 2 years. My first contract was 2 years. My goal was to be out here by 2019, and now I'm like, I don't think I ever want to leave Wausau. So I would say just making that 21-hour drive with my parents, having no idea, never visiting this town, saying let's do it, and now to call it my home, I think has just been pretty courageous making that initial step to get to where I am now. Yeah, great. Well,
Man, I feel really sad because I really don't think those are real sincere feelings. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Don't get offended by it. I'm just kind of reading energy. Sometimes people will do things on interviews and different things like that to kind of create a facade. The reason why this doesn't make sense to me, guys, is because the information we got from the blog. She talks about feeling pain every day, and the way she coped with it in the past when she was home was being alone, going to the cemetery where she could be face to face next to Jordan, the love of her life, someone who was very pivotal to her. One of her other experiences is going to be with his mom. You know, they share those sentiments as well. And how this was a very difficult thing for her to move all the way to Wisconsin. And all of a sudden you're happy to be at this place that's away from someone that means the world to you. I don't know how that all, to me, makes sense. See, that's why I'm saying this story is very important to cover, because a lot of people, you see this smile and you just think this young lady is just so happy. But she was carrying skeletons, pain inside, and wearing these beautiful dresses. Everything looks so great on the outside. The smile, everything. You could see her smiling and looking like she's enjoying herself. But I don't think that's the case. I don't. This is my theory, guys. You guys may or may not want to agree with me. You guys can have your own theories. But based on the words that she said in that blog, it doesn't make sense to the way that she coped with the pain that she deals with every day. She said, I experience pain on a daily basis. And she said, when I'm very sad, I prefer to be alone, and I prefer to go to the cemetery and be and talk to Jordan. And then she talks about going to talking to his mom. If two of the coping mechanisms are gone and all she has is being alone now in this whole new state, how is that really helping her cope with this pain? I think it makes it worse. So I think there was a deception, a false deception of her being happy there. She found some things she liked. But I feel, my theory is, because her boss, also you have to understand who's videotaping this is her coworkers. Her coworkers are videotaping this interview. So of course she has to make it sound like, I love Wisconsin. She's not going to tell this person who's interviewing her how she really feels, because that is going to be a negative reflection on her with her coworkers and possibly her boss, because her boss is videotaping all this stuff. I mean, her boss is going to see all this stuff. So she has to create this facade that she is so happy living in Wisconsin. When reality is she was able to promote and work her way up to one of the most difficult positions most anchors don't get to in the time frame she did. And because she did all that work to get there, she didn't want to have to redo everything over. Now, yes, you can arguably say that she could have gotten a station job in Florida because of the experience she has in Wisconsin, but there's not a guarantee, you guys. It's very competitive in the news anchor field. And if you already have other people in Florida, maybe the job she wants that has those station jobs, they may have her say, oh, you can get this job, but you have to start off as a one of the regular weekend station anchors for now until we can work you up again. There's no guarantee. So again, the reason why I had to stop this, because I'm really feeling in the spirit, I don't believe that's truly the sincere, deep core feelings that she felt. And she already had a challenge moving in the first place. And she's away from her mother, her father, her sister, her the love of her life's mother, the love of her life, his cemetery there where his gravesite is, where she could go and at least, I told you that this was something she dealt with alone, because the two rare people that really understood what she was going through was Jordan, who is now passed away, and his mother. I don't know anything about his father because she talks more about the mother. She didn't mention the father. So those two sources that she had are now gone. So only she has left is being alone, which is not a good place to be when you're going through trauma. All it does is add more pain, because the enemy has great access now to torment the person. So that's why there were so many red flags in this interview. I had to stop and just talk to you guys, and I will be doing this throughout, because that's why we're going over it, to kind of highlight the red flags that are concerning.
Well, speaking of WASA in our community, can you tell me a little bit more about how you serve our community? Yeah, I would say first and foremost, just in my everyday, when I get up at 2:30 in the morning, roll out of bed, and getting to do the job that I.
So another red flag I see is she gets up at 2:30 in the morning. This young lady has a long, busy day. Long, taxing, busy day. We talked about Chesley Chris' schedule. Same thing. Chesley had a very long, taxing day, and we already know how emotionally draining those type of careers can be. But this is also a concern to me, because she has such a long, taxing day, getting up 2:30 in the morning, working these long hours. This doesn't allow enough time for her to process her emotions. And she already experiences pain on a daily basis, as she mentioned in the blog. So working all these hours, all it does is just distract her from the pain she's feeling. She doesn't have enough time to process the pain she's dealing, which further exacerbates, makes the pain even worse, escalating the depression that she's feeling and further isolation, because she doesn't have much time to even process her pain because she's constantly working. And then when she does get off work, she has to spend time with her fiance, again carrying this mask around because she has to pretend and cover up the pain she's feeling and feeling alone. And now there's added trauma, because whatever story she covered that may have had trauma in that story, she's adding that's piling upon the pain that she's already feeling with the loss of the love of her life, right? Now she has added trauma because of whatever stories that she had to cover during her job that day. And then she doesn't get to process any of those emotions because now she has to spend a couple hours or however long she's spending with her fiance, because she's not going to really share too much with him because she has this wall up, because she's too afraid to really let him in, because she's afraid that if she lets him in, she's going to lose him too. Anybody close to her that she truly falls deeply in love and gives her heart to, she feels as though she lost. She lost one, so she's not going to lose it again. So she's going to keep this barrier up, which further makes her pain even worse because she doesn't have enough time to process the pain. And when she finally gets that alone time, she is left with all the trauma and the pain and the enemy tormenting her for very few little time to sleep at night because of all the tears and the pain and the depression. And she has to start back up her day at 2:30 in the morning the next day. Another thing too, she has faith because she talks about prayer in church very briefly. So I think she had some type of faith, but I think there is a point though, she abandoned it. She was so angry, I believe there was a point where she abandoned her faith and let it, and because she was angry at God about the whole loss of what happened to Jordan. So she speaks of faith, but I don't think she truly was connected. There's that connection you have to have. That's why I was telling you guys at the beginning that you could be a Christian, you can be a believer, you could be a Catholic, no matter what your religion is, you can pray, all those things. But if you cut off your source, which is God, it opens the door for the enemy to come in. So people can't get distracted by someone saying, oh, I pray or I read the word, because if they cut off that connection and that channel with God, and they abandon their time and their faith and their leaning and their trusting upon the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him and he will lead your path. If you stop trusting in him and you cut him off, that opens the door for the enemy to come in. Because that's the same thing that Satan did to Job. Job was a believer. He loved God. And he loved God so much, God was so proud of Job. And he loved Job so much, he was bragging about Job, how Job loved him. And Satan said, well, okay, you think you're so big and bad. Let me go ahead and let me, torture Job a little bit. Let me take some stuff away from him. Let's see if he worships you. I guarantee you he will curse you and he will die. So see, the enemy will come and torment even God's children. And it is up to you to choose. But see, the issue is some people, even if we are believers and the enemy comes in to torture us, we will give up the fight and curse God and die. That's why you'll see people who are believers sometimes who end up self-concluding because they, instead of continue to trust God as we see Job did, Job continued to fight through the adversity and focus on trusting God, even through the times where he lost family, he lost his home, he got all these lesions on him, all these things. And he, through all that pain, he could have self-concluded, he could have cursed God and self-concluded and died. But instead, he chose to fight through that and lean upon the Lord, and then he was able to overcome. That is the key thing, that why God gave us Job's story, to let us see that even believers will experience the battlefields of the mind that the enemy places upon us. But it is the choice that you have to make, that you are going to fight through it all and lean upon God to help you get out of it. That's the spiritual aspect of self-conclusion. There's all the other parts of getting counseling and stuff like that. We're not focused on that part of the counseling, having social support, affirmations and stuff. There's other ways to cope, but right now for this video, we're focusing on the spiritual part of it.
It is serving others, but it's such a gift to be able to do what I do. They say if you I wouldn't trade this job for the world. I think it's...
Did you hear what she said? Did you hear that, guys? Let's go back, because she tries to play down her trauma. This is very concerning, because Chesley does this too. She makes it sound like, oh, you know, we cover these trying stories and all this trauma. Oh, that's nothing, because at the end of the day, I love my job. No. No, 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 no. Neena is an empath. Neena is somebody who really deeply cares from the core of her heart. And I get that from how she was supportive with her boyfriend, how her heart is so invested in helping children suffering from cancer. She is an empath. She's the type of person that really absorbs the pain and sufferings of other people. It's evident from how she was, you know, talked about her background in the blog. So for her to now try to pretend as though, oh, these stories that she covers is really de minimis, it wasn't. It's stuff that she took home and she suffered through. But it really hurts me, because I could see that she's pretending as though it's just a walk in the park when it's not. Because a lot of times she'd cover these stories and she could not get past those stories and had to pretend as though everything was okay. But when she went home at night, she had to grieve not only the loss of Jordan, but grieve all these trauma that pretty much opened up the door of pain that she was, you know, trying to get past, because maybe a story she covered that day could have resurfaced and exacerbated her existing pain.
I was just so little, you know, just like something that people could wear on their wrists every day to just remind themselves, you know, that someone always has it worse, or think of someone, you know, going through a hard time. And so it's cool to be able to journey with him through that and get so many people behind him and that and be in that way.
That's so great. Can you share an example of how you acted courageously?
Yeah, moving here. Let me just tell you that. So everyone always laughs at me being out in the community, being in the public eye all the time. People are like, "You're from Florida. Why in the world would you move to Wisconsin?" And so back in 2017, right before I graduated, I had been in talks with my friend, and we talked, and he had asked if I wanted to come up and visit Wausau, and I was like, you know, I just don't. I mean, I'm a college kid. I'm about to graduate. I don't really have the finances for that. I don't know what that looks like. Yeah, I know mom and dad can help, but I'm from Tampa, Florida originally, this big city, and I kid you not, when I first heard about Central Wisconsin, I thought it was a four-way stop. I thought that Bible, grocery store, church, that in school, you know. And boy, was I wrong. And I just made a decision through prayer, through conversations, through a bunch of different things and processing. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to go. Take the leap of faith, and if it's meant to be, it'll be. And it was the best decision I think I could have ever made.
It's the opposite. I get so worried when people say grandiose statements like the best decision I ever made, this is the best person I ever had. This statement reminds me of the Chris Watts story. If you guys know Chris Watts story, and was her name Shannon Watts? So Chris Watts, really quickly, guys, briefly, Chris Watts brutally murdered his wife and his 2 children. And Shannon Watts was his wife. And she would talk about on these blogs, she did tons of blogs all online. And one of the blogs, she says, Chris Watts, she was talking about her husband. She said he was the best thing that ever happened to me. And he was quite the opposite. He was the worst thing that ever happened to her. So when I hear statements like, this is the best thing that ever did to me, it really sparks this red flag in me of, is this really what she means? I think it's quite the opposite. I think the Wisconsin thing, it may have appeared to be the best thing that ever happened to her, but I don't think it was. I think it was difficult to be in another place because of all the trauma we talked about and the different factors we discussed. But it just worries me because those words are actually quite the opposite of what she is saying in this video, in my opinion.
Moving here, and now just taking the reins and making this place my home. Oftentimes, a lot of you will understand if you watch the news that this is a really revolving business, and especially in the starter market, people come here for 2 years. My first contract was 2 years. My goal was to be out here by 2019, and now I'm like, I don't think I ever want to leave Wausau. So I would say just making that 21-hour drive with my parents, having no idea, never visiting this town, saying let's do it, and
that initial step to get to where I am now. Yeah, great. Well, speaking of boss in our community, can you tell me a little bit more about how you serve our community? Yeah, I would say first and foremost, just in my everyday, when I get up at 2:30 in the morning, roll out of bed, and
Oh yeah, we watched this.
Say if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And of course, there's hard days, there's tough stories that we have to tell, and tough things you have to go through, and breaking news and whatever it may be. But I wouldn't trade this job for the world. I think
there's hard days and tough stories you have to break through. Being a news anchor, you have to look at the balancing factors. There are a lot more hard days and tough stories you have to break through than the good. Just go watch the news. All you have to do is put on the news for a couple days. You will see. Balance out how many good, positive stories you hear versus the negative stories. You will find that there's an imbalance in negative stories. So again, she tries to downplay the realities of her job, and there's a bigger gravity of negative stories that she has to cover versus the good. And she gets these little treats here and there where she gets to do these little fun coverages, but the majority of it is these her graphic stories on top of her own trauma that she's trying to cope with on her own.
humbling to know that people in this community really turn to me and to my coworkers for the best news that they can get, the truth, and there's value in that, in the local news world. And so to have that respect in this community, I think one, so just feeling like I'm serving at my job, and getting to start people's day off right. You know, anytime that I can get an extra laugh in there or get in like a cute story, I'm like, okay, bosses, I know you may not love all the good stories.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Did you hear that? We got to go back. She said to be able to get in a good story. And I know the boss may not like any of the good stories. Did you hear that? She's telling you, see, she has to make this facade up because this video is being videotaped by her coworkers, her supervisor. Okay? You're not going to tell the truth, you're not going to tell what's really going on in your mind when your boss is there and all your staff members and people. This is being recorded by the station. So she's telling you she has to squeeze in here and there those little positive stories. And she said, you may not, she's looking at her supervisor like, oh, I know you may not like the good stories, because that's not what the news station's for. They want to cover the drama. They're here for the drama. They want to cover all the negative stuff because that's what get people to watch videos. People are not going to tune in to all these happy-go-lucky Disney stories. They're just not. And that's what these news stations know. And that's what she knows. So let's go back to that, because you need to really focus in. Some of these things are so easy for you to ignore and gloss over, but they're very pivotal. So sorry, I might have to go back a little bit, but I need you guys to at least hear what she says, because it's very, 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 very important.
But sometimes we need that, this world, it's just, we're bosses, I know you may not love all the good, get an extra laugh and feel like I'm serving at my job. And getting to start people's day off right, anytime that I can get an extra laugh in there or get in like a cute story, I'm like, okay, bosses, I know you may not love all the good stories, but sometimes we need that,
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? So first, number one, this is all what is called kind of gaslighting, kind of saying all the things that they know the boss will like to hear. So she says, I like to have my viewers start their day off right. No, we know when you guys watch the news, do you really start your day off right? I mean, sometimes if you watch, oh yeah, there's like Good Day America, stuff like that. Those are the good ones. But most of the news out there, when you start your day, they're telling you the negative stuff. Oh, there's a crash on I-70 or whatever, I-65. Oh, there's a fire over there and there's a shooting in 364. So avoid that street. There's going to be ambulance and everything over there. And the weather is going to be pretty rainy and stormy. So you might not want to be on the slippery roads. Make sure you get those chains on your tires because it's going to be a snowy day. Oh, there's a tornado coming in and there's going to probably be a Category 5 hurricane. So I think this is gaslighting. I think that she's trying to make it sound like, oh, I'm doing all these great things, but are you really starting the day off on a great, right morning? I don't know, because when I watch the news, I see a lot of negative stuff. Then she says, sometimes you want to talk about the positive things and squeeze those in. because she knows majority of her coverage is not going to be positive. The majority of her coverage is going to be negative. But she's trying to make it sprinkle in there to make it look like that. And then she even says and looks over at the cameraman, because the cameraman is, I think it's her supervisor or whatever, because at the end, he talks at the end. That's why I know, I think that he's either the supervisor or he at least works for the station that she's at. There, the lady that's interviewing her is at her job, has came to Neena's job. So she has to be on her best behavior. So that's what I'm saying. You got to be careful to listen to everything and take it as the gospel and exactly what she feels, because it's not. Okay. And so she looks over at the cameraman, because that she knows the reality of the job. And she's like, even though the boss may not really like all the good stories, because she knows they don't really care for the good stories. They know that's not going to get them views. What's going to get them views is the drama, the shooting, the blood, the gore. So that's important for you to understand, because she doesn't get a choice. She has to cover all these negative stories, and she gets excited when she gets to get that one little moment of positivity here and there, every now and then, when she can sprinkle it in there. Okay, and so that's weighing on her emotional trauma that she has to deal with, that she has to go home with, on top of dealing with the loss of the love of her life, on top of being away, hundreds and thousands of miles away from her family, her support system, even areas of outlets such as the gravesite of Jordan and other ways that she copes. She's away from all that, plus having to carry on this mask in front of her new fiance. And all of this is all a facade. This young lady had really no outlet. She chose to be all alone and try to deal with it, which was what ended up causing her demise.
We're in the middle of a pandemic. It's hard, and there's days even for us to have to sit and face it every day and talk about it every day. I mean, if you don't want to hear about it, you can turn off the TV. We can't. We come to work, and it's our duty to share all that information. And
did you hear that? Did you hear that? I got to rewind that. Number two, another factor, the pandemic. So there was an emotional turmoil that she had to deal with regarding the pandemic. That's an added factor. There's so many factors at play. And she had to go and report on all this trauma that people dealt with regarding the pandemic, and she could not avoid it. She had to face it head on. And so that's extra trauma, because she's dealing with her personal trauma. She's dealing with trying to cope with a pandemic all by herself, because really she doesn't have the pivotal people that are in her life, her family and friends, and people that are really have that foundational influence on her life. They're all the way in Florida. And now she's on a job in the middle of a pandemic, having to cover these dramatic trauma stories. And like she said, you guys get to turn the TV off if you don't want to watch it. We don't get to do that. I need to rewind that, because I need you guys to hear that again. That is just too important. Sorry, I might have recorded Ryan a little bit more, because I need you guys to hear this. This interview, you guys, when I watched this interview, it had so many just red flags all over the place that I'm pretty sure people glossed over.
You know, this world is just, I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. It's hard, and there's days even for us to have to sit and face it every day and talk about it every day. I mean, if you don't want.
So they have to sit and face the fact that there's core issues regarding the pandemic. They have to hit it face on every day, and they don't get a choice. This girl had so many assortments of trauma and pain. It was too much. Jordan, the news stories, the pandemic, and all the issues with that, having to face this stuff every day at work, and then take it home and still deal with it at home 24 hours a day. From 2:30 all the way to the next day, she's dealing with trauma. I don't think this girl ever had a break. I don't think she ever had a break from her mental torment. Period. Every day, all day, mentally in anguish and pain and depression. And then you add the enemy on top of that, tormenting your mind, and then you feel all alone, because she says she deals with pain by being alone, which is a big no-no. It was too much for her. She couldn't take it anymore. Which is very sad, because there were so many resources she could have reached out to, but she chose not to. She didn't want to get the help. She closed everybody out. And she tried to do it on her own when she couldn't, because the enemy was able to come in. He is an open door for him. It gives him open access to the mind.
For us to have to
So she said, if you don't want to hear it, you can turn off the TV. But she doesn't get to do that, you guys. This young lady was suffering all day, every day. And imagine getting up 2:30 in the morning with your thoughts of someone who meant the world to you, who is the love of your life, who is the driving force. What is a driving force? The driving force pretty much navigates every single part of your life. My driving force for me is God. So because God is my driving force, when I wake up, I think about him. Every little thing that I do the whole day, he's on my mind. From the time that I get up to the time that I brush my teeth, take a shower, every little thing, to what I eat, I'm talking to God. When I'm working, I'm thinking and talking about. He is on my mind 24/7. Her driving force is not God. She said her driving force is Jordan. So she's thinking about him 24 hours a day. Plus, she's going to this job, having to cover these stories. Plus, we're in the middle of a pandemic. So she has to hear all the statistics and the trauma, different people who died because of the pandemic, family members getting interviewed because their mother or husband or children died from COVID or whatever. And she's got to interview these people who are crying and in pain and in agony, or she has to hear of one of her coworkers interviewing someone who's crying or whatever, talking about loss of their son or whatever. And then she has to remember about Jordan, who is the driving force of her life. So she is suffering all day, every day, and she doesn't get a choice. She doesn't get vacation. She can't just get off, go on vacation from her mind. She can go for vacation from her job, but she can't escape the thoughts in her mind ever, period. It's an all day, every day agony she never gets to get away from. And she chose to not tap into the resources all around her. She chose to block everyone out because she chose an unhealthy way to process her hurt by trying to do it all by herself, when in reality, none of us can get through mental health complications by ourselves. We will all fail if we try to do it all by ourselves. You cannot get through mental health complications on your own. And it's very sad because that's what Neena tried to do, and that is what ended up causing her ultimate demise. But I got to rewind this again because this is so important, guys. I'm sorry. I got to, because there are souls out there who are hurting and in pain who need to hear Neena's story, because this might be the one story that saves their life. That's why we cover stories like this. It's important because there's lives out there that are on the line. There might be somebody right now at home crying and they happen to tap into this live. And because we're talking about these key factors, it might be able to tap into their heart to reach out to someone else, to call out to God, to call out to the therapist, to call out to a friend, to call out to someone else, because you cannot get through mental health complications by yourself. You will not win the battlefield in the mind by yourself.
All that information, and so I think that I would say I serve in that way just in my job. In addition to that, being able to be a part of so many amazing organizations with my job, whether it be through like K-Tech Charities, the Chamber, getting to MC so many events and meet people that claim to know me or know me, feel like they know me because I get to hang out with them every morning, and so it's fun to be able to then meet them and serve them, whether it's delivering food at Christmas to families in our area who are not as fortunate as others, whether it be through Susan G. Komen, I could go on and on and on. And so I would just say, through work, there's so many opportunities that I don't know that I necessarily get. There's certain things where we fight for ourselves and say, hey, I want to go be a part of this, or Toys for Tots. I love getting to dress up like a Christmas onesie. Just make the most of it,
So another sad part about it, if you heard her say a keyword, she said there are certain things that we have to fight for. So on this job as a news reporter, a lot of these reporters have to fight to get stories that they prefer to cover that may be positive. For example, she said the Christmas or the giving gifts or whatever stories. But that's a key thing you need to understand, that this job is just not some easy job where you're enjoying, you see all these news anchors smiling on the channel. No, they have to fight, not physically, but they have to work really hard to try to get a story that they want to cover. And a lot of them want to cover positive stories. And that tells you that this job is so loaded with negativity and all kinds of just horrific stories that the positive stories are so thin and so sparse that anchors have to literally fight to try to get those stories. That is so sad. That is so sad to see the broken system in our news reporting that is so negative and so dark and kind of sinister in the reportings that we have, that news reporters literally have to try to fight to try to navigate up the system to try to even get a positive story. That's just sad. And imagine that extra pressure that this young lady had to deal with, plus all the other trauma she's dealing with. This was not a happy life for her. This was a lot of pressure. And then being alone. And on top of that, trying to figure it out because she chose to be alone to try to cope through all of this trauma. So let's just hear that again. I want you to hear that key part of her talking about the fighting for the positive stories.
I love getting to dress up like a Christmas onesie and just make the most of it, you know. I would say, so I could sit here and list so many organizations over the past 4.5 years, and I'm sure I'll just add to that list. I would say, so there's part of this, or Toys for Tots, you know, I love getting to dress up like a Christmas onesie and just make the most of it. Through work, there's so many opportunities that I don't know that I necessarily get. I mean, there's certain things where we fight for ourselves and say, hey, I want to go be a part of this, or
You see that? There's certain things we fight for ourselves. That's sad. That's just sad. That there's so many negative stories. That's so sad that there's just so little positive things out there that the reporters are willing to report on in these stations that these people have to fight. That's sad. And I think this is important that we talk about this because no one really knows the dark parts of being a TV anchor. They think it's just so lovely and dandy. But if you really look at it, it just doesn't seem like it's just this smooth sailing job as people portray it to be.
I could go on and on and on. And so I would just say, through work, there's so many opportunities that I don't know that I would necessarily get. I mean, there's certain things where we fight for ourselves and say, hey, I want to go be a part of this, or Toys for Tots, you know, I love getting to dress up like a Christmas onesie and just make the most of it, you know. I would say, so there's...
Make the most of it. Why do people say that word? When they say that term, make the most of it, usually people make the most of stuff that they don't usually get. It's like something very sparse. So when I get something positive that I may not, for example, always get, I'm going to make the most of that thing. I'm going to very cherish it. I'm going to embrace it. So she's saying, you know, Toys for Tot are these one little small little positive stories that we get that I can try to fight for to just climb up to even get this story in the first place. I need to make the most of it because I'm not going to see these stories often. That is sad. That's a lot of pressure on someone who's already going through emotional trauma. It's very sad. But see, she makes it look like it's so lovely and dandy, but you have to look deeper into what she's saying than just the surface, because you'll end up glossing over it and missing the key points that are in this video.
I mean, I could sit here and list so many organizations over the past 4.5 years, and I'm sure I'll just add to that list in the years to come. So that's always a really fun way to get to serve and represent my station and just the community as a whole, you know. So I agree.
Well, thank you so much, Neena. It's been a pleasure getting to know you a little more today.
You as well. Are you ready to go live on TV now?
Well, Kari and Neena, thank you for being part of this live interview on Facebook. This is the 3rd out of 4 today that we have scheduled, and we invite those that are watching to join us for the 4th one coming up in a little bit later this afternoon. We'll have additional interviews through the rest of the week with the other finalists, and again, thanks to both of you.
So I wanted to play that in so you can hear the cameraman speaking, because this was, again, something where she wasn't just merely talking to a random person. She has to still keep this facade up because her coworkers are going to see this. Her boss is going to see this. People that can determine her future are going to see this interview. So you can't just take everything that she's saying in this interview to be reality, because it's not. It's not, you guys. Just, I mean, you have to look deeper into it, and you have to combine it with the other factors and indicators we see. We're going to go over one more video, and then we're going to close out this video. You guys know, usually I go into the chat and I talk up to you guys, but this video is already like 4 hours long, but I needed to go over this. I'm sorry that it's long. I know people are going to be irritated with it being long, but there's souls on the line that need to see this. So we had to dissect this story to the core, because this story has so many important things that people out there need to hear, and hope and pray that it will save a life. I'm praying to God it saves a life, because I don't want to see any more self-conclusions. I could pray, but like I told you guys from the beginning of this year, back in January, those that were with me, that we were going to see many more of these. Unfortunately, this was a year where the enemy was on a mission to take lives through self-conclusions, and he's still working. So stay prayed up. But let's watch this last video, and we will be done. Oh, wait. Okay, I understand, and I wish to proceed.
The hair serum, which has basically kind of transformed my hair.
Excuse the infomercials. Okay, we're almost done.
A Wisconsin news personality has died by suicide.
And welcome to Wake Up Wisconsin. I'm Neena Pacholke, and we'll get to those top stories soon.
Neena Pacholke encouraged viewers to wake up with a smile on weekday mornings. Pacholke started as a reporter for ABC affiliate WAOW in 2017 and was promoted to morning news anchor in 2019.
Hi, everyone.
So you see that she climbed up the ladder of success, which was a difficult thing, as she talked about in that interview, how many news anchors struggle to get to that point. And so it was like, she's not going to go back and have to try to figure this out again in Florida. Who knows if she gets another, immediately can just navigate into another station job. She felt that she, needed to stay there. And that smile there is so sad to me. And it really breaks my heart, because that's not how she felt in her side, you guys. That's so sad to see someone in pain having to pretend like everything is okay. Oh, God. So sad.
The Tampa Bay native graduated from the University of Southern Florida, where she was on the basketball team. Her sister Caitlin told the Tampa Bay Times, quote, "She just radiated love and positivity, and she just cared so much about pouring into other people and always put other people first. I think she did that at the expense of not caring about herself."
Those words, guys, are so daunting, because you know what? Those were the same descriptive words that people said about Chesley Chris. Same words. That she radiated love and positivity. She cared about so many people at the expense of herself. It is a similar thing that a lot of our souls that end up self-concluding, they do. They deflect all of the pain they're dealing with, and they channel it into helping other people, and they don't deal with their own mental health complications and struggles. And so it becomes eventually too much for them to bear, because they try to cover it up on their own, because they want to pretend to be this pillar of strength for the people that they're trying to help and love. In her sense, she was caring for many children who suffered from cancer, because that was the way she channeled her hurt and pain and grief from losing Jordan, the love of her life. But you need to look at how these stories correlate, because it's a pattern here that you'll see in a lot of people who end up going down this spiral of hopelessness.
Neena Pacholke is survived by her parents, sister, and fiance. Her family has confirmed she died by suicide. If you or someone you love is struggling with mental health, please reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which can be reached 24 hours a day by dialing 988 in the United States. Neena Pacholke was 27 years old.
It's so sad, guys, and that's why I felt it was important to talk about this tragedy. Let me know what you guys think. I'm sorry I won't be able to go into to see the chat. I'll read it later because it's just that we had to really break down all the different intricate indicators in this very, very, very sad story. This young lady just suffered. She just, after Jordan passed away, it really did cause a spiraling downhill in all of the many pains that she felt. And it just, all the other factors that came into play, from moving away from some of the support system that she had, to being on a job that was very taxing, and causing her to have to relive the pain that she felt from trying to cope with all this on her own, which is a death trap. It's not a good way to deal with mental illness by yourself, and trying to carry this facade like everything's okay when it really isn't, all by herself, and blocking everyone out, even though she had all the resources at her fingertips. So I just pray that Neena rests in peace. And again, guys, just a disclaimer, this is just my own opinion. I really don't know the details and intricates of what happened, but I'm just speaking from my spirit of what I feel happened based upon the information we have. Love you guys. I pray that you guys live a long life and to continue to fight for your life and live happy and whole. Take care.